And Sterling Bennett with analysis, sound from the locker room, and your reaction to the game. When the clock hits 0, we bring you overtime. Take it away, boys.
That's a little better. It's a lot better, actually. The 49ers beat the Patriots 30-13. Kyle Madsen here, Sterling Bennett there, Mark Grandy also in the building. Well, guys, I want to open this up to you first because, frankly, I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I feel right now. The 49ers go get a win. That's good. They needed to get back in the win column. They're 2-2 for the season, and they pretty thoroughly dominated that game. But I don't know where you guys land on this. It felt like they could have dominated it a little bit more, and maybe I'm being picky at this point, but happy with the win. Still feel like there's some things they got to clean up.
Yeah, I feel like if this was a win that was smack dab in the middle of like the Niners' 5-game win streak last year, you'd feel a little bit unhappy about it because they had been so dominant. Like you go back to last year, it was the Thursday night game, week 3 against the Giants. They dominated. Week 5, Sunday Night Football, I think against the Cowboys, they won by like 4 touchdowns or whatever it was, almost 5 touchdowns. And if this performance, say, came on the heels of that, you'd be like, well, they didn't play very well today, but they still dominated a bad team. But because it comes off of a couple of losses, and last week, one of the more uglier performances in Niners history, in recent history, I'm nothing but just happy that they got a win and got back to 500 because it was looking pretty ugly after last week in LA. So I'm happy for the win. You're right. It was kind of uneven at times. They could have certainly played better, but a win's a win. And that's what they needed. They got out of here maybe healthy, which we'll keep an eye on as well when Kyle Shanahan talks. But
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed there. But yeah, a win's a win. Good to get back in the win column for the Niners. That's what they needed no matter what.
What'd you think, Sterling?
They were desperate. They could have been 1-3 had they lost this game. Their playoff hopes would have fallen all the way to 13%. And they said, wait a minute here. How about 42%? How does that sound for you? 2-2 feels a lot better than 1-3. After last week's loss, kind of like Mark said, it was like any means necessary. Yeah. May not have been pretty sometimes. At times it was okay. This feels kind of like last week. Patriots are still in this game. You know, what is San Francisco going to do here? They're letting New England hang around. But overall, 30-13, if that's how you're going to win, I think anybody right now would take that in a heartbeat over a loss in this one.
Yeah, it's hard to be picky. Right, like that's kind of that's
kind of a way. But
I went in. Well, I went in like I watched the game Thursday, the Thursday night game between the Cowboys and the Giants. Right, and the Cowboys go win that one 20-15.
Ugly game,
and it's just right. It's just not a great football game. And I was looking at it and I'm going, man, if that's how the Niners win Sunday, I don't know that I'm going to be that thrilled. But it wasn't that drastic. They could have played better, but the way I'm looking at this is the Niners are still shorthanded. Like, that's something we have to remember here. Even more shorthanded defensively with no Fred Warner in the second half. Yeah, he came out. It was weird. He brought his helmet out, and he had his helmet on and was standing on the sideline.
He was in his pads the whole second half. Yeah, just never came on the field.
Yeah, very, very odd. But they're still shorthanded. They beat the heck out of a bad team. And that's I think the positive. But on the other hand, I think one of the things that was really good today was their defensive line, right? No Javon Hargrave, who's out for the year. They get 2.5 sacks from Kevin Givens. They get 1.5 from Malik Collins. Nick Bosa gets a sack. Evan Anderson, the rookie, the undrafted rookie, comes up with a strip sack. So it's great. But at the same time, I think where my feelings lie is, okay, that's awesome that the defensive line stepped up. They needed to, especially against a really bad offensive line. But how does that translate into next week when you go play the Cardinals, or the week after that when you play the Seahawks, or the week after that when you play the Chiefs?
Like, this was a game, and it's kind of similar to the Rams game last week, where you should be able to control the trenches and dominate. Now, this is a Patriots team who's maybe a little bit better in the trenches than that Rams team last week was, especially considering all the injuries to the Rams offensive line. Mm-hmm. And even given the Javon Hargrave injury, you still felt like the Niners had the advantage. Nick Bosa finally got a sack down the stretch of that game, forced a fumble and recovered the fumble himself.
He was asking for all of them.
He was so close, like 5 different times to getting a sack, and it was at the point, Kyle, you and I here in studio watching this game saying, like, Nick, like, at some point, you got to just get the quarterback on the ground, man. You got to at some point.
Right.
He had his best game of the year. It'll only be 1 sack for him. And this one, it goes with the strip sack, and he recovered the fumble. Really nice moment. He was really good throughout this game. It was a little frustrating because he couldn't get the quarterback on the ground, Brissett on the ground for most of the game, but he was good in this one. But again, it's coming from a position where the 49ers should be able to control this game on both sides of the football, and it just kind of felt like offensively and defensively, even with the sacks, it wasn't really like the Niners ever got into a rhythm. The offense was kind of stop and go, especially in the second half. The defense would play good on first down, good on second down, force the Patriots into a 3rd and 8, and the Patriots would convert. Like, it kind of was a step forward and a step back here and there. You win by 17, you can't be that upset, but it wasn't the most dominant, the most complete, a full 60 minutes of football game for the Niners. There's definitely pieces that we can pick apart, and we will before the day is over, but you got back in the win column, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I think as this is, you're listening to Overtime on 95.7 The Game. Mark Grandy there, Sterling Bennett. I'm Kyle Madsen. 888-957-9570. If you want to join the program, you can give us a call. That's also the Xfinity mobile text line. Again, 888-957-9570. I think it's kind of interesting, Mark. You brought up how disjointed the offense felt, and then you go look, and they go field goal on their first 2 drives, where they get inside the Patriots 10 on both drives and can't punch it home. Then they finally go get a touchdown on a 95-yard drive that took forever to get into the end zone. Like, that was just there was the penalty on the Jordan Mason touchdown, the penalty on the Kyle Juszczyk touchdown. There was a penalty on an incompletion. Just like, dude, get in the end. And then they finally do with the incredible George Kittle, touchdown grab.
Yeah, it took nearly a miracle to get in the end zone on offense.
Triple coverage, just playing 3 flies up out there saying, go get it, George.
That's what it was. I thought it was a great throw. And then you get a punt, and then they fumble the opening kickoff of the second half. Man. Did anyone, I want to pause there. Did anyone feel like, hey, this game might get sideways at that point? Or was that just me? Was that exclusive to me?
Once the Niners fumbled the opening kickoff of the second half, I mean,
it's 20-3.
I wasn't ever concerned they were going to lose this game, but I was like, oh, this might not be pretty in the second half.
I was a little concerned. I don't know about. I was concerned.
I think he said something like this. There's a 31% chance they lose this game.
Yeah, I was like, I'm 31% that they're going to lose this game. No, but I think that's kind of what you're getting to. And then at the end of the game, so they punt twice to end the third quarter, but then they start the fourth quarter and they're driving. They get the long completion to Juwan Jennings, and it looks like, okay, here they are. They're going to punch in a touchdown here. They're going to turn this one into a laugher. And then inexplicably, Brock Purdy puts up, I think, his worst throw of the day on the interception on the toss to Aiyuk. That really felt like, to me, and I don't know about you guys, but that felt like, to me, a quarterback going, hey, I need to get this wide receiver involved. I need to get Brandon Aiyuk a touchdown. I'm going to throw it up to him here because there was just never a point where that felt like a good throw, Sterling.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird one. You just hit the big bomb to Jennings downfield. You're being aggressive downfield over and over and over again. I felt like it was an unnecessary throw to make. If you watch the game again, you can see the window in which Brock Purdy saw Aiyuk was open for a split second. But once that safety gets back, it's like, hey, check it down, take it easy. You're in position to put this game away. Don't force anything. I thought that throw was Purdy being a little, a little too aggressive, trying to take advantage of what maybe wasn't there afterwards. But ultimately, I thought that it was Purdy saying, look, I've had so much success doing it all game. Why not? They're not going to score 3 times in the next 5 minutes with this defense is playing today, but still is probably a worst throw of the game, like you said, Kyle.
He had a couple of weird throws in this game. That was the only one that got picked off. But for the most part, he was really good in this one. The Aiyuk thing is kind of weird. I was expecting a bigger Aiyuk game, and he had the big, 38-yard catch the first drive of the game. Yeah.
First throw.
And I don't think he had another catch until the third quarter. He finishes with just 2 for 48, 5 targets. He was stuck on that one catch on one target, the 38-yard reception in the first quarter for the first 3 quarters of this game. It wasn't just that he wasn't catching the ball. They weren't even looking for him. They weren't even targeting him at all. And at some point, if we do want to nitpick this game or nitpick this team, at some point, whether or not it's him not getting open or it's him getting open and Brock Purdy not seeing him or not throwing it to him for whatever reason, at a certain point, you're going to have the conversation of, well, this guy's making $30 million a year, and either he's not getting open, which is a problem, or he's getting open and you're not using him. What's the point of even paying him $30 million if you're going to only complete 2 passes to him in this game? And I know it's just one game, and it's now the 4th consecutive kind of uneven performance, and that shouldn't be the focus today. The Niners put up 30 points. Jordan Mason was good. Juwan Jennings only 3 catches, but was awesome again in this one with a couple of amazing grabs. There's other things to be happy about. Deebo Samuel getting open down the field. George Kittle back, and he got a touchdown in this one. But the Aiyuk, involvement in the offense continues to confuse me 4 weeks in.
Yeah, man, and I'm not really sure if that's just him and Purdy not being on the same page. Maybe it's something Aiyuk mentioned this week that teams are defending him differently. Maybe they're just taking away those in-breaking routes in the intermediate area that he's been so good on, and Purdy's just hesitant to pull the trigger. That's the other thing I wanted to get to with Brock Purdy is, does it feel to you guys like he's scrambling more because he's being less decisive? That's how it feels to me. Every time he scrambles, it looks like he's standing there in the pocket. There'll be the protection will be fine, and he's just hesitant to let it rip. And so he starts scrambling. He'll throw it down the field. And of course, we saw the couple of long throws, the one to Aiyuk, the one to Jennings. He had a couple long ones to Jennings, the one to Deebo that really opened it up to take the top off the defense. But it just, I'm not 100% sure yet how I feel about all the Purdy scrambling, because it's like, that's a great part of his game, and that's really cool. But on the other hand, is he leaving throws on the field because he's hesitating or because of what defenses are doing?
Oh, back to Aiyuk. I'm pretty happy he wore the same shorts today that everyone else had on. But with Purdy, I think you may be onto something there, Kyle. We've grown to know the Shanahan offense to be so predicated on timing, things over the middle, slants, crossers, and everything seems to work over the middle of the field, where now it feels like there's more things towards the sidelines. There's more throws 35 yards downfield over the safety's head, which really hasn't been a something we're accustomed to in a Shanahan offense. And maybe it is what Aiyuk said of defenses are scheming against them differently than last year, and maybe that's the case. But I would also like to assume that not having Aiyuk for an entire offseason, Deebo's in and out of the lineup the first couple of weeks, and not even having Kittle for the game last week, you don't have your guys out there. It's hard to trust players like Ronnie Bell, who didn't play today, and hard to kind of get a timing with your stars and your wide receivers. So I would like to think it's just that simple, but we all know the NFL is much more complicated than that. So let's pray against the Cardinals next week that we see a lot of the Purdy decisiveness back on display against a really bad Cardinals defense. They got 42 points put up against them today by the Commanders.
Yeah, Commanders are looking good. Jaden Daniels is like setting records, not just rookie records, but records. I think he has the highest completion percentage through 4 games of a season for any
80%.
Quarterback. Not just a rookie quarterback, but for any quarterback through 4 games of a season. He's been awesome. So the good thing the Niners don't have the Commanders on the schedule next, because that might be a rough one for the defense. But on Brock Purdy and scrambling and extending plays, first of all, he's really good at it. He doesn't get enough credit. He does not get enough credit for how good he is at that. Kyle, you and I were talking off the air during the game. He gives the little pump fake, not even like a full pump fake, just a little bit of a shoulder, like he cocks it back just a little bit, and he gets the rushing defensive end or corner or whoever it is to jump, to try to knock the pass down, and then he's got enough quickness to get around the edge and gain like an extra few yards. If it was easy, every quarterback would be able to do it. He does it as good as almost anyone out there. Now, to your question, Kyle, is he doing it because he's, I don't know, a little bit worried to let it rip? Is the pressure breaking down? I honestly thought that he's extending plays that he doesn't necessarily need to extend, and it got to a point where Greg Olsen, who does a great job on Fox, saying, well, if you're the Niners, priority number 1 has to be figuring out the offensive line and protecting Brock. There were obviously some bad moments and moments where Purdy had to scramble. I thought for the most part, Purdy was scrambling for the hell of it. Maybe the protection was fine. Maybe it was no one getting open. Maybe he was feeling a little bit antsy. I'm not exactly sure. I thought he was scrambling as a result of other things other than the offensive line. Again, there were moments where the protection breaks down and he has to take off. I thought for the most part, though, the offensive line was okay. And it was more so Brock Purdy, for whatever reason, not liking what he saw in the first three seconds of the drop and then extending the play right or left, keeping his eyes downfield or running. It's a good thing to have in your bag, maybe not something you want to go to as often as Brock Purdy's been going to it, though.
888-957-9570. That's the phone number. That's also the Xfinity mobile text line. 888-957-9570. Mark, I've got to ask you this on the fly here. I would like to take Autumn's call.
Yeah, I'll do that for you.
You do that for me? Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. Autumn is coming out of Levi's. Autumn, we can't figure out how we're feeling about the 49ers win. How are you feeling as you leave Levi Stadium? Hey, Autumn. You're on overtime.
Hello?
Yes.
I'm on.
Yeah, you're my favorite season.
So it's Adam, by the way.
Oh, Adam. Thanks, Adam. Sorry.
Wow.
So, I'm feeling great after that win. Like you said, a little rough after that fumble, but I'm still happy. I mean, I'm saying, why are we paying Brandon Aiyuk so much money? Against the Rams, he had 2 or 3? He was going insane against the Rams, and he's proved that he can be a great second option, like even maybe third. I'm still taking Debo, but $31 million for Aiyuk. Like, I know he just got back. He was pretty rusty from that. He was pretty rough from that contract negotiation, but Juan Jennings has been on fire lately.
Yeah, no doubt.
So,
Thanks for the call, Adam. As far as Aiyuk goes and paying him $31 million, I'm not punting on that idea just yet. Aiyuk was really good last year.
Yeah.
And I know that doesn't help this year, but I'm giving it another couple of weeks before I start wondering if Brandon Aiyuk is ever going to be productive again. Like, we saw him in 2021. He's in the doghouse for the first 4 games, and he still almost had a 1,000-yard season. I'm still in on Brandon Aiyuk. I'm not ready to punch just yet.
Why is it that Niner fans we won by 23 today, and we're like, Brandon Aiyuk didn't have 9 catches. Like, why is that the main takeaway of a game like
17.
this?
Don't add 6 more to that.
Math is hard. Sorry. But still, we won. We're 2-2, 500. You're in a good spot. Divisional game next week. Yeah, there are things to clean up, but you got a handful of sacks. Your defensive line was getting pressure. The offense, albeit was stagnant at times, was pushing the ball down the field over and over and over again. And the first call is, well, Brandon Aiyuk is not playing great yet. And they're right. Aiyuk has not been a $30 million receiver at all this year. In fact, I would like to think that last year's week 1 against the Steelers is already like he has not surpassed that performance in total through 4 games than last year. Like, it's not been a smooth sailing offseason thus far. Then obviously short gate this past week's not been great, but like there are so many better things to discuss and greater things to get into than why Aiyuk wasn't great. Kittle was phenomenal today. The running game was really good outside of Mason's 2 fumbles, but he was getting 10-plus yards, felt like consistently on the ground. And Purdy, again, was also really good. Yeah, Aiyuk wasn't great, but he won by 17, not 13. It's even better.
Yeah, I'm glad. You know what, Sterling, I'm glad you bring that up because the more we talk about this and the more we kind of go through this, I think what happened was going into this week, everything was so like there was so much angst with the 49ers, right? Based on how the last 2 games had gone. And I think I just have residual angst. I think that's what's happening here because Sterling, you said it. They win by 17, okay? They go 7 of 13 on 3rd down. They outgained the Patriots by 215 yards.
They doubled them up.
And ran 2 fewer plays. That's insane. They held the Patriots to 3.5 yards per play. I don't care what offense you're facing. You hold an offense to 3.5 yards per play. That's incredible. The 49ers averaged 7.2 yards per play. That's an outstanding number. Like you start to go through it. It's like, oh, if you take away the 1 interception and you turn that into a touchdown drive instead, like the entire tenor of the game feels so much different.
Yeah, and we're kind of burying some of the other news. This is obviously more pregame news and weekend news leading up to the game. Obviously, there's the whole story about McCaffrey, and maybe the Niners are ramping him up beginning tomorrow, and maybe he's back sooner than we expected. Okay, put that on the back burner. It's kind of still a big question mark at this point. But Debo returned today. I think I guaranteed that he would limp off the field at some point because that's what happens. Maybe I missed it. I didn't see him limp off the field. That's a plus.
Yep.
Trent Williams was dealing with a little bit of an illness early in the week, then a toe injury. He played and seemed fine. Didn't see him have to go back and get an IV at any point. George Kittle missed last week against the Rams. He returned, as Sterling said, looked really good. 4 catches, 45 yards, and a touchdown. The Niners have like already 5 insane catches this season. That George Kittle one might have been the best of them all, considering it went for a touchdown. He was awesome in this game. He also changes the run game. He does not get enough credit. We all throw out, well, he's the best 2-way tight end, catching and blocking. We kind of just throw out the blocking part because we know he's good at it, but you don't really see what he does unless you're really paying attention to it, or you see him. You see what it looks like when he's on the field and what it looks like when he's not. You got that perfect comparison last week to this week. The run game was much better this week, 5.1 per carry against a Patriots defense, by the way, that isn't bad. Like, this is a pretty good defensive unit. Remember, week 1, they go into Cincinnati and absolutely shut down Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And that offense, this is a pretty good defensive unit. The Niners put up 30 points on them. So there's plenty to be happy about. And when you look at it through the prism of you just lost consecutive games on the road, return home, get a little bit healthier, you stay healthy, get some home cooking going, just get that bad taste out of your mouth and get to the next week relatively healthy. You hope there's nothing bad with Fred Warner. We'll hear from Kyle Shanahan later on during the show. But you guys are right. Plenty to be happy about, and there's plenty of time to dissect Aiyuk's performance in detail a little bit later.
You perfectly opened up what I want to discuss next, and that is what the 49ers did down the field today. It felt like every drive they had on offense up through the first 3 weeks felt so difficult. Like every drive felt like, man, 12-play touchdown drive, 15-play touchdown drive, 10-play. It felt like everything was like was just so uphill. And then today you see a 53-yarder to Deebo Samuel. You get was it 45-yarder to Jawan Jennings. You get a 38-yarder to Brandon Aiyuk. It felt like they were making a conscious effort to try and create more explosive plays. And if they're going to start doing that, you'll see the return of the 49ers offense all the way, because that's just kind of what's been missing for me. And I thought it was kind of a deliberate thing today that they went out and and aim to take the top off the Patriots defense.
Which they tried that against the Rams last week, and sometimes it worked, and it wasn't consistent enough to work all the time. But
right.
The Patriots are banged up on both sides of the football, and San Francisco knew that coming in and said, look, we're going to take chances today. Mm-hmm. And the difference is they have the personnel to do that and actually win the battles like that.
Yep.
And you kind of wanted to see more of that against the Rams that are really banged up and still are. They lost today, thankfully. But the Niners today, and this one I thought really walked into Levi saying, look, you got to put up or shut up. And today it was, look, we're going to put up. We're going to put up 30 points. We're going to put up home run balls left and right. We're going to let our stars lead us to victory, and Brock Purdy was a main part of that. I think Shanahan, last year you saw it a lot late in the season, but so far with Christian McCaffrey out, Deebo Samuel missing time, George Kittle missing time, Aiyuk kind of being on and off the field, like Kyle Shanahan has full, complete trust in the quarterback for the first time ever in his tenure in San Francisco, and you see it every single game now. He has dropped back 5 wide, first down, third down, does not matter. Purdy, full go, win me this football game, and it's really nice to see.
Yeah, and I also think it's, in terms of the national discourse on Brock Purdy, and that's like a battle that we'll probably be fighting for the rest of his career.
Until he hangs him up.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll never win that.
Never. Doesn't seem like it. But the national discourse around Brock is still, he's a product of the system, a product of the weapons, and, you know, he just drops it off to Deebo underneath, and Deebo will turn a 5-yard gain into a 25-yard gain. First of all, that was not even the case last year when the Niners were healthy for the vast majority of the season. You watch today's game, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, and it probably takes a little bit for them to come out, but like average depth of target, ADOT for Brock Purdy today, I'm sure near the top of the league for week 4. Like, he's throwing the ball down the field over and over and over again, and it wasn't his most efficient day, 15 for 27 passing, but all you need to know, 15 completions for nearly 300 yards. Like, he was getting big chunks every time he completed a pass, and it's something you pointed out, Kyle, earlier this year. Without Christian McCaffrey, the offense, it's kind of strange. They're still like at the top of the league in terms of explosive plays, runs of 10 or more yards, and passes of 20 or more yards, but they're nowhere near where they were last year.
Right.
They like lapped everyone last year for explosive plays. They're still near the top of the league, but not quite on pace from where they were last year, and McCaffrey's a huge part of that. But Purdy is showing that he can do that and lead an explosive offense even without McCaffrey, and that's why the touchdown drive in the second half, what was it, 4 plays, 70 yards in less than 2 minutes, that felt like last year, because you just got big chunk, touchdown.
It felt like last year, but looked very different.
Yeah. There's no McCaffrey involved.
Right. And that's what you're seeing the Niners offense kind of evolve in, and Sterling, you said it. It's really clear that Kyle Shanahan trusts the quarterback to go 7-step drop, 5-step drop, and push the ball down the field. All right. 888-957-9570. This is Overtime. Mark Grandy, Sterling Bennett. I'm Kyle Madsen. Let's get to Theo in the East Bay. He wants to talk about Brock Purdy airing it out. Theo, what you got?
So, boys, thanks for taking my call. Great win today. I mean, this was what you call a get-right game for the 49ers, and I feel like they did that. Came out there and asserted their dominance. But Brock Purdy, man, I mean, all bets are off now. I mean, you can pretty much take it to the bank. He's our franchise quarterback. I know people have had their doubts and stuff like that, especially early on this season, but he's working with Jennings and Deebo Samuel, those 2 big plays down the field. It's good to see, especially when Kyle's putting his trust in him to air it out like that a few times a game.
Yep.
I mean, it looks good, and especially with now the defense getting locked in. I know Fred Warner probably had a little back issue. Hopefully he's all right. But that's what you wanted to see from a complete football team, especially against a weaker opponent. So I think, all those other conversations, especially about Brandon Aiyuk, they'll come later, but this is what you wanted to see out of what, the 49ers should be. And you know what, I tip my hat off to Kyle Shanahan for letting Brock Purdy kind of let his do his thing today, and it was a good win.
Yep.
Cheers, boys. Have a good one.
No doubt. Thanks, Theo. Yeah, it's just, I think that's it. I think at this point, Mark, we were saying it time and time again in the studio. Brock Purdy's just good, dude. Like, he just makes the right plays. Is he ever going to throw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns? Like, no. No, and honestly, Patrick Mahomes probably won't do that again. But he's going to make the right play. On 3rd and short, you feel really good that they're going to convert, whether it's with his legs or with his arm. He's throwing at different arm angles. He's using pump fakes. He's throwing the ball down the field. I thought that two of the bad throws today looked like a miscommunication with Juwan Jennings, where both times Jennings stopped his route when it looked like Purdy was expecting him to keep going. That was kind of odd. But he just how many times during a game, and I think that this is a part of quarterback play that has just gone a little bit by the wayside when we analyze what we're watching with quarterbacks. How often does he just make the right play?
The vast majority of snaps.
Yeah, or vice versa. How many times a game are you like, oh, like that was ugly? Like maybe once where it's just like, oh, that was a really bad play. Like the interception to Aiyuk. Like that wasn't, that was late throw, underthrown, just not a good ball. But otherwise, he's playing the position at a really, really high level. And I think with Christian McCaffrey out, and not that Jordan Mason is bad. I saw a tweet from somebody at Pro Football Focus that said, Jeff Deeney from Pro Football Focus, Jordan Mason's on pace for 1,900 rushing yards this year. So it's not like they've abandoned the run game. It just looks a little bit more like your traditional drop back and pass offense because teams defend them a little bit differently when Christian McCaffrey's not on the field.
Yeah, you don't have the McCaffrey cheat code available to you anymore.
And they're still productive.
Yeah, and you got to kind of do stuff a different way. Yeah, you put up 30 points against this New England defense. You put up 32 week 1 against a good Jets defense. Although the Jets today, my God, losing at home to Bo Nix and the Broncos. Bo Nix.
Don't lie, Mark. You're sitting there saying, go Ducks, brother.
No doubt. But that was
They were a quality -7 yards in the first half.
Bo Nix threw for -7 yards in the first half, and the Broncos won that football game.
Insane.
60 passing yards in total, and the Broncos beat the Jets. So maybe that week 1 win for the Niners over the Jets isn't quite as impressive as we first thought it was going to be. We'll see how it plays out as the season goes on. But the Niners offense is having to do it in a different way. One other area that I thought was really encouraging for the 49ers moving forward, and this is if McCaffrey continues to be out for a while or even if he returns, knowing that you have Jordan Mason there, and by the way, developing as a pass catcher as well.
Yeah.
Quietly today, out of the backfield, and I know you, on a personal level, Kyle, were happy about this one.
Boy, was I.
He had 2 catches for 37 yards, and he got robbed of a touchdown reception because of a interesting holding call against George Kittle.
Holding call. We'll call it bad. We can't get fined.
George Kittle made the best of it because he then turned that into his crazy touchdown catch. Second time a Niner pass catcher has held on a touchdown and then turned it into a touchdown themselves, by the way, going back to Debo week 1. But Mason developing as a pass catcher as well, and he'll never be McCaffrey. That's not my point here. But he's developing in front of our eyes, as you would expect. He's getting his first real consistent run as a pro. And you mentioned he's on pace for nearly 2,000 rushing yards this season and is not incapable of helping out in the passing game as well. So that's another positive for the 49ers offense as they try to continue to live in a world without McCaffrey for the time being.
I thought that play that got called back for the touchdown was like exactly what they need from a pass catcher who's not Christian McCaffrey. Because Christian McCaffrey could go be a Pro Bowler as a slot receiver, right? Like that's what everybody says. If he just moved a wide receiver and played that, he could go do that. I'm not saying Jordan Mason's going to do that, but can you route up a linebacker and get open in the middle of the field and then run after the catch? Like I think that's it. That's all they need, right? I think they should do it more often. Just run the touchdown to Jordan Mason play, and then don't have George Kittle hold at the end. Just come on. Seems like pretty simple work. Overall, though, I think they left a couple of plays on the field, and I think that's kind of what I'm harping on right now. But the more, like I said, the more we talk about this, the more I'm having trouble poking holes in what the Niners did offensively today. I thought they were really, really good. And if anything, I think what this does is this stabilizes a team that was a little bit in a free fall. And we'll have to see. Kyle Shanahan said that they don't believe it's an ACL for Jordan Elliott, which would be good news. They said they still have to run some more tests. And then Fred Warner tried to go in the second half, which is why he came out with his helmet, had his helmet on, but just couldn't get it right. So we'll get some more info on that hopefully tomorrow when Kyle Shanahan talks with reporters on a conference call.
Really quick, Fred Warner was on Niners socials running off the field after the game. So they're posting Fred Warner running off the field. It's nothing, would be my guess.
Do we think, okay, conspiracy theory time. Do we think that it wasn't good to go because it was the Patriots? Like they kind of looked at the direction they thought the game was going and went, hey, you can just, does it hurt a little? Okay, then just sit.
Like a basketball coach playing the score in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Steph Curry sits with 10 minutes to go up by 20. The lead gets down to 8. Oh, you got to put him back in.
Yeah, I think that's what happened.
Jeez, Mark.
I'm serious. I think that's what happened.
It's like every night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I wrong to think that the way the Niners are currently playing are how the McVay Rams have played the last few years offensively, where the entire offense goes through Matthew Stafford, but they have running backs that can do things like Jordan Mason, Kyron Williams. In previous years, it was Sony Michel and others, Cam Akers for a year or two in LA. The offense, because it has to be currently, feels very much like a Rams offense the past couple years, where it's like, hey, Stafford, drop back 35 times, different arm slots, throw it to Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and win us this game. And now Shanahan's like, hey, Purdy, go out there and do whatever you have to win us this football game. And you're not going to have 100-plus yard receivers every single week, but you're going to be able to get it done with the weapons you currently have.
Yeah. I think so. I also think there's this would be an easier conversation to have, or maybe you would be more likely to get an honest answer out of Shanahan if the team wasn't 2-2 and kind of fighting for not their life, but trying to make sure that they have a chance still to win the division and get a top seed in the NFC and all that, because that's still all on the table right now. The NFC, despite a couple of undefeated teams, the Vikings look real good. They're now 4-0. They go into Lambeau and
Vikings
race them in the first half. It got a little hairy in the second half, but they still won that game. They're 4-0. The Seahawks, they play tomorrow. They're 3-0. So those are the only two undefeated teams in the NFC right now. You have all that in front of you. But I also think there's part of Kyle Shanahan who probably really enjoys the challenge is probably the right word, but there's also something else in here, like learning a little bit more about Brock Purdy and seeing what he can do without Christian McCaffrey and last week without Deebo Samuel and without George Kittle. I know that was kind of a talking point in terms of the national media wondering if Brock can do it without those guys. But maybe there's also a little bit of Kyle who's thinking like, all right, I have my beliefs. I think Brock's the guy. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. When we have to pay him $60 million a year, and that means saying bye to X, Y, and Z, I still think we'll be good because I know Brock is good. But I think there might be a part of Kyle who's kind of enjoying this process right now because maybe it's easier for him to kind of test and see what limitations Brock has, if any. He can just kind of figure it out on the fly. It becomes easier if you're winning games and you're ahead and you can kind of play it that way. So it makes it a little bit tough when you're 1-2 going into nearly a must-win game in week 4. But I think Shanahan might be enjoying trying to test the limits a little bit of what this offense can be, led by Brock specifically.
That's kind of interesting because I know he's always said he prefers coaching the run game, but at the same time, I don't know that there's I don't know if there's ever been a situation where he has a quarterback who's going to make $60+ million and they're going to have to kind of change the entire complexion of their team around him. So maybe you're right. Maybe we're going to see a little bit something different from Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers offense, but they threw the heck out of it today. They ran the heck out of it today. Like they were just firing on all cylinders against a defense that hadn't been bad to this point.
Until they get in the red zone. Then it kind of...
Oh boy. It's been tough. 888-957-9570 is the phone number. That's also the Xfinity mobile text line, 888-957-9570. Jeff, listening all the way out in Rhode Island, believes that the 49ers let the Pats hang around too long. Jeff, we've let you hang around too long. Thanks for sticking with us on Overtime. What's up?
Hey, guys. How's it going? Love the show. I love listening for you, obviously, from 3,000 miles away.
My man.
The talk here about Brock Purdy is they think he's the real deal locally. I mean, we have Scott Zolak who does the Patriots radio, and he's a huge fan. And I guess regarding today's game, I'm glad they won. I'm glad the defense. I'm glad Nick Bosa, made a big appearance this week. My thing is, I still have a little angst hangover. I think it was probably after the first 2 drives that they didn't punch it in and just put the Patriots away right off the bat. But I know everyone is gonna beat on Brandon Aiyuk, but that's gonna be the stigma for him, unfortunately, for the rest of this contract. When you're making $30 million, it doesn't matter how good he is. They're gonna say he has to be that good because he's making 30. So it's kind of like you're not gonna win. He's never gonna win because when you make that money, you're expected to produce big numbers. And when you don't, they're saying, why are you paying them? So, I mean, that's kind of what you sign up for in that case. So, I mean, eventually it's gonna, he's gonna come through. This offense is gonna come through. And I was just listening to you guys. And no word yet on Fred Warner.
No, just that he's got an ankle thing. No word yet on the extent of the injury.
Yeah, so I'm feeling much better than I thought I was going to think after the first two drops. And I think going forward, we should probably start ramping up this offense a little bit too, and the defense. So I think we're in good shape. I was panicked last week, but this week I'm feeling a lot better about the team.
No doubt. Thanks so much, Jeff. Anybody with that accent that wants to call this program, please do. 888-957-9570 is the phone number. That's also the Xfinity mobile text line. I want to run something by you guys real quick on Brandon Aiyuk, who had 2 catches for 48 yards today. Had the 38-yarder, and then he had what I believe to be like a Brandon Aiyuk style catch.
Awesome diving catch at the line.
Yeah, beats Christian Gonzalez, lays out, like makes a diving catch. It looked exactly like the touchdown we saw against the Eagles last year in the back of the end zone there. Like, that's just kind of when I envision Brandon Aiyuk, that's the type of catch I envision him making. Here's what some other top receivers have done when matched up against Christian Gonzalez this year. Jamar Chase, 3 catches for 15 yards on 3 targets. DK Metcalf, 4 catches for 27 yards on 7 targets. And then Garrett Wilson got him for a touchdown and 33 yards on 5 catches and 9 targets. Like, Christian Gonzalez is a really good player for the Patriots. And I think that had something to do with the lack of Brandon Ayuk's presence today. That's just kind of what Christian Gonzalez does. And the 49ers have the weapons to beat other players in the Patriots secondary. And they took advantage of that.
I'd have to look at how the snaps broke down, because I know at least a handful of times Gonzalez was matched up on Debo when Debo was lined up as a wide receiver. So he kind of split. If Debo was off the field or lined up in the backfield, Gonzalez would move over to Aiyuk. But there were a handful of times where Gonzalez was matched up on Debo. I think you're right, though. He's a great corner. I don't need to hide my fandom for him because he's an Oregon Duck. Yes, go Ducks, second year out of Oregon. But that's certainly part of it. And the Niners are at a point where this is where maybe some fans get frustrated because you're paying the guy $30 million. And if you're just going to use him as a decoy, I guess is what some people will say, he's not worth paying $30 million to. But if you've got a great corner on the other side and you have a good receiver who is taking that guy away and you have others that can then benefit from that, that's worth a lot. Like, that's valuable to have on your team. Just take one of the best corners in the league away and open up the rest of the field. That is valuable in and of itself.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan said during the offseason as to why they didn't go, sign or draft higher offensive linemen. They wanted the weapons. They went out and they got Garendo and drafted Cowling and Pearsall. There's a reason why you pay Debo and Kittle and Aiyuk and Christian McCaffrey. It's for games like this, when the opposing cornerback, who's phenomenal, can quote-unquote erase your star receiver. Well, you're paying 2 other guys the highest rated money in football to go out there and win their matchups. So, yeah, it's Christian Gonzalez, but ultimately Kyle Shanahan's like, great, go erase Aiyuk, fine. I have Kittle and Debo and Juwan Jennings to do their jobs as well. Try to beat us, and you just can't.
The 49ers offense, very good today. The defense, also very good. Will we continue seeing that moving forward? We'll talk about some of the defensive highlights from today. And, of course, we'll talk about Fred Warner's injury as well. He missed the second half with an ankle injury. All of that coming up next on Overtime here on 95.7 The Game.
Brissett given time over the middle. He gets picked off by Warner. Fred Warner climbs the ladder to get it. And now he sprints down the sideline. Inside the 10. He won't be denied. Touchdown, San Francisco.
Now back to overtime with Grandy, Madsen, and Bennett, with sounds from the locker room and your calls at 888-957-9570. Overtime continues now.
So much more fun doing this after a 49ers win, 30-13. San Francisco dominates the New England Patriots, thanks in part to that highlight you just heard, Fred Warner's pick six. That was the point of the game that we had a caller earlier. I think it was Theo, who called in earlier and said, yeah, hey, it felt a little bit, I was a little bit nervous after the 2 field goals to open the game. And the Niners get deep into Patriots territory. They wind up with field goals on in both instances, but come back in the second quarter with the Warner pick six. And that play was not a surprise that it was Fred Warner. Comes up with a huge defensive play the Niners need. But B, that was the point of the game for me that I went, all right, they're good. Like, okay, they're gonna win. By how many? Couldn't tell you. But they're gonna win this game, and I feel good about it because it's number 54 coming up with yet another massive play this season.
Yeah, we've been talking about Fred. Maybe he had a little bit of a down week last week, as did the whole defense. But incredible week 2. Very good week 1. He was awesome in this game in only a half of football, had that pick six. And what I thought in the moment after he had the interception, by the way, just reading the eyes of Jacoby Brissett, drifting to his right, feeling the post coming, and he's got more over the middle, and he slides back to his right and leaps, makes an incredible grab, has the wherewithal to get up and has the athleticism to then make a couple of guys miss, get down the right sideline, stay in bounds, tiptoe the sideline, dive for the end zone. And the first thought that ran through my mind is, us calling him the defensive player of the year is underselling him. He might be the best football player, period. Like, he is so good. He's so good.
Wow.
Sterling, your thoughts?
He laps the field.
That's why he's a GOAT.
Other linebackers in the NFL, he laps them. He is, like, we call him the best linebacker in the NFL, as we should. That doesn't give him enough credit because he's just so much better than everybody else at that position. He's incredible.
He's been the best 49er. He's been the best defensive player in the NFC West. And I think, not having Aaron Donald here anymore, people finally get to see Fred Warner being the great player that he is. And we all knew he was great. He's elite, best linebacker in football. But you don't have the guy in SoCal taking all the credit for how great he is now. It's all Fred Warner's show in the NFC West. But going back to the interception, the pick six, the offense, 2 back-to-back red zone stalls. You're like, oh my goodness, this feels like the offense that's been terrible or been stuck in the mud for the last 3 weeks. How is this game going to progress? And they're still not great, but they get the fumble. They can't score. My dad texts me and goes, Moody, 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 blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're right, Dad. Like, you're right. Like, we got to score some points. And thankfully, Fred Warner comes up, gets the pick six. The offense is going crazy. The defense is celebrating. Finally get the Levi fans, the crowd of Levi's into the game. You can hear it start to get bumping out there. And Fred Warner, man, he's one of the players you point to and say, whenever we need a big moment, that guy's going to make the big play. And he always, always does.
Yeah, it's pretty uncanny, and I think you guys are right. So Joe Shasky said to me a couple of years ago, this is legit, this is like during the 2022 season, he was like, man, I kind of think Fred Warner's better than Patrick Willis. I went, come on.
Get lost.
I like Fred as much as the next guy, but come on.
Don't disrespect the Hall of Famer Pat Willis like that.
But I think I agree with him.
He's probably the best linebacker that I've ever seen play on the 49ers.
Yeah, dude. And that is with all due respect to Navarro Bowman, who should have had a DPOY in 2013. That is with all due respect to Patrick Willis, who should have been in the Hall of Fame many years ago. I am fully understanding of what saying Fred Warner is the best linebacker I've watched with the 49ers means. I know the gravity of that. But after watching him to start this season, 3 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, a pick six, all in 3.5 games, by the way. Didn't even play. Second on the team in tackles today. Didn't play the second half. Didn't matter. Just played maybe the worst game of his life back in week 3. and comes back and just kind of took ownership of this game for the 49ers like he did in Minnesota. They didn't win that game, but they were only close because of Fred. Like at this point, dude, he's got to be the DPOY front runner, and I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to say that he's the best 49ers linebacker I've ever watched. I think I'm there, guys. Any arguments? Are we all in agreement?
I agree.
Hell yeah.
I'm with you.
Agree.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm
Come
with
on.
you.
All right, great.
There's also so much on his shoulders, though. The offense, again, doesn't have McCaffrey, didn't have Debo, all that stuff. How is Purdy going to respond? How is Fred Warner and the defense going to respond? No Dre Greenlaw, no Talanoa Hufanga.
Yeah.
Third downs are terrible. You're not getting pressure. This was a massive game for the defense to step up. They get 2 takeaways. They get 2 early in the game, at least. They get 1 later in the game. This defense came to play, and Fred Warner was kind of the genesis of that. Okay, guys, we have to come out. Forget what happened at SoFi last week. Forget the Vikings game. This is a bad team in the Patriots. The offense, they can't move the football. They're not going to push us deep downfield. It's all going to be in the box. Let's control the box. And Fred Warner getting the pick 6 was the epitome of controlling the box. This was the defense's game. The offense played great for sure at times, but the defense was just amazing today for San Francisco, and Fred Warner was the beginning of that stuff.
Yeah, and I also think when you have someone that always leads the right way and says the right things and has the right mindset, you kind of underrate it. When you have it, when you don't have it is when you notice it. And that's why I think so many people have freaked out about some of the Brandon Aiyuk stuff. Not saying that he's a bad teammate or any of that, but that's what some people have been saying, that the way that he's handled the offseason and being a little frustrated he has to change the pants that he's wearing at practice, whatever. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But
Feels petulant.
That's the leap that some people make. And for Fred, you mentioned what he did week 2 in Minnesota, absolutely incredible. Maybe the best game I've ever seen him play. It's just unfortunate that it happened in a loss when literally everybody else around him defensively played like they got 2 hours of sleep the night before. Unfortunate the way that it went down. But Fred, after that game, what does he say on the podium? He says, yeah, that 97-yard touchdown to Justin Jefferson, that's on me. I was coming on a blitz. I got to get to Darnold. That's my fault, guys. He was the only reason that game was close.
Yeah.
Not only is he the best player the Niners have on the defensive side, at the very least, you could argue the best player they have. You could argue the best defensive player in the NFL. Not only is he that, but he is this team's spiritual leader. He is the guy that gets them fired up and ready for games. Obviously, Debo and Trent have a role there as well, but Fred Warner is the heart and soul and the heartbeat of this team as well. And without him, and from a leadership standpoint, they would hurt. We know how much they would struggle without him on the field, but he's also so good in those other roles, and he's really grown into that over the last 3 or 4 years as well.
The Niners defense was so good today, and I think we've kind of been waiting on a performance like this, where the Niners defense just looks dominant, and they did against a not very good Patriots offense. Here's Kyle Shanahan from his post-game press conference. Here's Kyle Shanahan talking about the Niners defense.
I thought the defense was awesome all day. Anytime you score, even better. But, to start out the way they did, the first couple drives especially, scoring, Fred getting the score, the 2 turnovers they created. I didn't get a look at all the stats, but I think they were really good on third down. Defense felt like dominated all day.
Yeah, they did. And I know that there's a level of competition here, right? The Patriots are bad. And Sterling, you mentioned it earlier. Defending them is not super hard because, you can play within that 10-yard box between the numbers. And
pretty one-dimensional.
You're pretty all right. You're all set. It felt like they had 10 series today and they all went run on first down, run on second down, pass on third and long. That's just kind of how it felt all game.
To the Patriots' credit, pass on third and long worked kind of often.
Hey, Malik Mustafa, the missed tackle on the 3rd and 6 on the first drive. We got to make a play, Rook. We got to make a play in space.
Ramondre didn't even give him a juke. He just ran to the right and ran around him.
No, you gotta wrap him up. Tackle the outside shoulder. Get your head around. It's fine. Drop the interception later. It's okay. Niners defense. I want so badly to lean into the Patriots aren't good, but they aren't. And the Niners defense dominated the way a good defense should dominate a bad offense, right? That's kind of the takeaway for me is, okay, Nick Bosa had the strip sack and fumble recovery at the end. That was great, but man, he affected so many plays. Leonard Floyd didn't have a sack, but he affected so many plays. And then you go get Evan Anderson, the undrafted rookie defensive tackle, getting a strip sack. You get Kevin Givens had 2.5 sacks in the second quarter. He had 5.5 sacks in 60 games coming into today. He has 2.5 in the second quarter. Malik Collins was outstanding. I think he's been really, really good for the 49ers so far this year. He had a sack and a half, also all in the second quarter. This was just an all-around really great defensive effort from a unit that I think they were my bigger question than anything they were doing offensively. Like, I had so many questions about this defense coming into today, and while you need to see them build on it, this performance today was a really great starting point for me.
Well, frankly, it was ugly the past 2 weeks. It was, can these guys even get off the field on third downs on any given drive against the Vikings and the Rams? But, credit goes to, the players themselves. Isaac Yiadom wasn't a liability today. Devondre Campbell wasn't perfect, but the way the Patriots play suits his play style more in a run-stuffing linebacker. And we did get to see Tatum Bethune and D. Winters, and it was nice to see young players get some reps. But I think more importantly, we saw Nick Sorensen from the jump say, look, the Patriots' offensive line is banged up. They're not going to test us deep. They blitzed like 6 or 7 times in the first 2 or 3 drives against New England. You want to see a young defensive coordinator say, you know what? Let's make them beat us. Fred Warner was dropping back in coverage. Campbell's going in for blitzes. Lenore's blitzing. Whoever else is out there, linebackers blitzing. DFF was blitzing. Like, you can see that the way that the Niners played and were coached in this game was ultimately attack. And that's what you should do against bad teams. Make them beat you, force them to make plays, give them pressure. And Brissett was running for his life almost every single play. And even when he wasn't, it was like, okay, we're pretty sticky in coverage on second and first down. So, third downs are 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. And while those have to get cleaned up, it's like you'll take those against a bad team every single drive. And San Francisco's defense, more than anything, kind of smothered the Patriots' offense today. And that's what you want to see. Bounce back in a big way. This was that big way.
Yeah, I think I'm with both of you guys. The concern for me wasn't necessarily that the 49ers didn't have the talent to be good defensively. I mean, it was just so bad against the Rams last week that it kind of leaves you wondering, are we overvaluing some of the talent on this roster? They're not playing as well as they are. All the names that Kyle threw out, I mean, they all had the best games of their season. I was worried how this team might look in the middle without Javon Hargrave. Malik Collins was awesome in this game. Givens, as Kyle pointed out, was awesome in this game. And my concern wasn't necessarily that they don't have the bodies to get it done, but it was more the scheme and changing things up, because the Niners have relied on for so long. And if you can get it done this way, of course you want to do it this way. What they've relied on is getting pressure on the quarterback while only rushing 4. Essentially your 4-down lineman. You get pressure when rushing 4. You drop 7 into coverage. Odds are you're going to be a very, very good defense. And that's partly why the Niners have been so good defensively over the last 6 years, because they've been able to pretty consistently get pressure on a quarterback while only rushing 4 and dropping everybody else back into coverage. Well, this year they haven't been able to do that really. And now you take out Javon Hargrave, and it seemed pretty obvious to me that the Niners, in order to affect the quarterback, they were going to have to blitz more. And Sterling, what you pointed out is exactly right. I know it's the Patriots. I know it's a relatively one-dimensional offense. Jacoby Brissett, not mobile. We'll see how this works when they play Kyler Murray next week, right? That's going to be a challenge. Murray has always given the Niners some troubles because of the way he uses his legs to extend plays and take off and run at times. But to affect a quarterback, given what the last month and even really last year showed, you're going to have to maybe change up your scheme a little bit. You're going to have to be a little more willing to blitz. And the Niners changed up their looks. Maybe you're getting to a point where they feel a little bit more comfortable making a schematic shift. And again, today's the Patriots. It's not a good offense. We'll see how it looks against a better offense. But this was at least a step in that direction, showing me that they're willing to at least reconsider maybe the plan of attack for them defensively.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, too, if there's going to be a personnel changes if they start doing that more. Because if you're going to do that against a better team, you have to cover in the second level. And I'm not 100% sure they can do that with the current personnel group they have out there right now.
If one of the guys not blitzing is Devondre Campbell, I do not want Devondre Campbell on the field.
Hey, how about D. Winters had a nice little tackle for loss today?
Yeah.
And is the third linebacker. So, No, I think I'm with you. I was wondering where we might see, because Kyle Shanahan said this week, I believe it was on Wednesday, if you're not getting it done with the players that you have, then you have to start looking at what you're doing schematically. And I'm wondering if that might be the tweak for them, because mid-season you're probably not going to jump to a 3-4. Like that's a lot to do in the midst of preparing for a game, right? So you're probably not going to do that mid-season. So what are some different things you can do without completely overhauling what you're doing defensively? And I think that's it. I think that's what you might start seeing is an uncharacteristically high number of blitzes. And Nick Wagner from ESPN tweeted this during the game. The Niners blitz rate was 14% entering today. The lowest in the league. They blitzed Jacoby Brissett on 40% of his dropbacks in the first half. I think that number probably decreased in the second half just because they didn't need to get after it like that. But you see where they might start making these little changes and how you might start seeing the defense look a little different. And frankly, I think they're going to have to, because it was easy today, and that's great. You want it to be easy against a bad team. I don't know how easy it's going to be next week against the Cardinals or against the Seahawks or against the Chiefs. There are 3 games coming up.
Yeah, I think, what Nick Sorensen did today kind of it didn't reek of desperation, but it was like, get a little desperate. Like,
sure.
Your unit has not been very good. Your unit has, in fact, struggled and held and not been great against a Matthew Stafford that doesn't have Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee, and the Vikings who look better but didn't have Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson, and Aaron Jones fumbled a couple times in that game. Like, it's not been great. And so we want to see that unit be the best one on the field. And, Brissett dropped back roughly 34 times in this game. I wouldn't be shocked to see 20-plus pressures in this game by a defense that last week had 17 pressures against the worst pass-protecting offensive line in football. Mm-hmm. The Patriots aren't much better, but I would like to think by the way they played, they probably had 20-plus. Bosa was wrecking shop. I mean, Sam Ekwonu had like 4 pressures. You're like, whoa, he's just bodying up left tackles, which they're backups, but by all means, body him up, big fella. Get in there and go do some damage, and he was. And you're going to have guys step up, and having backup rookie defensive linemen step up is going to be a big ask for this team. But if today's an example of things to watch going forward, Evan Anderson, Ekwonu, other guys, like, heck of a job today by almost every single player on the defensive unit.
Yeah, am I overreacting to Sam Ekwonu? Had a sack last week and was really good again today. I mean, I know I didn't know much about him until last week. A lot of Niner fans probably in the same boat. And it's small sample, but given a chance, and he's produced as well as anyone in that small of a sample size. I mean, we'll see if it continues, but early returns are very, very good.
Yeah, and I think I had a quarterback hit today too. Got it lit up Brissett on a throwaway.
Yeah, just speared him.
Yeah,
helmet right to the chest.
It was a nice hit.
They got the forced fumble too early.
Yeah, right. Just punch it out. Like, that's just an individually great play. Like, I don't care who you're going against. He had the wherewithal to punch it away from the running back when he made his way into the backfield. I'm optimistic about Ekwonu because it wasn't like he had this long history of not playing and now all of a sudden he's in for the 49ers. Like, we've seen them do that with some other defensive linemen like Deion Jordan and
Deion Jordan,
like Jordan Willis, where you see and they come in and you go, okay, maybe they can get something out of him, but you see, like, man, they've had a lot of time to untap this potential. Maybe the potential's just not there, right? But with Ekwonu, he had never really gotten a shot. I think he was an undrafted rookie with the Titans in 2022, and he had half a sack that year, and he hasn't really gotten to play since then. So he gets into a new situation under Chris Kasurek around a very talented defensive line, and I think you're seeing him just come up and making plays. This isn't to say that Sam Ekwonu should start at defensive end or anything, but at a position where they needed anything depth-wise. Yeah. And along a defensive line where without Javon Hargrave, you just need somebody. Sterling, you said it, man. They just need somebody to go make a play. It doesn't matter if it's Nick Bosa or Malik Collins or whoever. And Sam Ekwonu, 2 weeks in a row, has come up with a play in the backfield. So I'm not ready to say that he's the breakout star of the season or anything. But if you're getting any kind of regular production from him, you will 100% take it. And I'm optimistic that he's trending the right way. I think. Oh, maybe I'm overreacting. But
we'll take it further. If Jordan Elliott misses any time, whether it's 1 week or 2 weeks, that means Yetur Gross-Matos probably plays inside and outside. You're going to have a player like Ekwonu get in there. He's going to play much more. So you're asking for more consistent reps from your second and third string players, where we walked into this year with the hopes of a Drake Jackson playing or Robert Beal Jr. playing pivotal snaps, where it's like, this guy Ekwonu looks great, although in limited reps. He's out playing second-round picks and fifth-round picks, and even at sometimes, although, again, small sample size, Leonard Floyd didn't have a great game last week, better today, but Ekwonu's at times outplaying people you paid to get back there on a consistent basis. And it's small sample size, sure, but it's nice to see of a team that needs those players to step up, that someone's kind of taking the reins for themselves and saying, you know what, I volunteer as tribute. I'm going to make some plays.
we could talk about Sam Ekwonu, and we could talk about Givens and Jordan Elliott and even Malik Collins and others all we want, and even Leonard Floyd. At some point, and this is why today was good, your best pass rusher has to act like your best pass rusher and has to get home to the quarterback. And like, whether it's fair or not, it almost doesn't even matter. Nick, you're the highest paid pass rusher in the NFL. You have to play like it. And it's not easy. You're being double teamed. There was a couple of plays where I was watching him specifically. He's got a double team, and they also have the running back on his side to chip him. Like, he's being at times triple teamed. Part of that is because your opponents don't really respect the other guys you got on the D-line, and that's an issue. But it's also because you have proven to be one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. You are very, very, very good. Sorry, it doesn't matter if you're facing double teams, triple teams. You have to perform. TJ Watt has what seems like a back-breaking, game-sealing play every single week. The dude is absolutely incredible. And for Nick, it's not like you got to get 2 or 3 sacks every single game. You have to impact big plays. Nick, it's a 3rd and 8. You got to get to the quarterback and at least force him off his spot. He steps up into the pocket. Guess what? Malik Collins is there. Bear hugs him for only 1 yard. They have to punt. It's not only about sacks. It's not only about pressures, but it's about when they happen. When are you making your plays? And I think recently, and this goes back to last year as well, part of the frustration around Bosa was, he'll get his sacks, he'll get his pressures, but on a big 3rd and 8 with the game on the line, he's unable to get off his spot. And that's kind of where the frustration, I think, for me has come from. Today, though, he was all over the place. 1st down, 2nd down, 3rd down. This was his best game of the year, even though he had 2 sacks earlier in a single game. I thought he was awesome in this game. And we can talk about all those others all we want, and they were good, but Nick Bosa was miles better than anybody else on that D-line, and that's how it should be.
Yeah, A players got to be A players.
Yeah.
One of the 49ers A players on defense dealing with a little bit of an injury. We'll talk about Fred Warner's ankle next, what Kyle Shanahan had to say about it, and what the 49ers might do if Fred Warner misses any time. Sterling Bennett there, Mark Grandy there. I'm Kyle Madsen. This is Overtime on 95.7 The Game. We'll be back in a second.
Pressure coming on 3rd and 10. Picked up enough to give him time to find George Kittle. Oh, amongst so many bodies, he ripped it away. Touchdown, San Francisco. George Kittle just wanted it more.
Welcome back into overtime. I'm Kyle Madsen. Sterling Bennett, Mark Grandy hanging out, enjoying a 30-13 win by the San Francisco 49ers. That play by George Kittle, guys. Play of the year so far for you? Sterling?
It's either that or it's the Juwan Jennings Moss of Quentin Lake last week.
Because because the Juwan Moss came in a loss, I'm going with this George Kittle one. Yeah.
Yeah, just the it felt like a throwaway when he first threw it.
My first reaction was, that Purdy just sailed it out of the back of the end zone. I legit said out loud, oh, no chance, incomplete. And then when I realized it was going to land in bounds, I saw 3 Patriots. I was like, no chance Kittle even gets a hand on this. Then he caught it, and then no chance he even gets in bounds. And he did that. No chance he even holds on, and he did all of it.
It was an unbelievable play. I'm with you. The throw went up and it went, oh, he's throwing it away. And then like, oh, dang, that's actually in a good spot. And then you see Kittle go up for it. And I thought there was no chance he got feet in or a hind end in or a knee. I just thought there was no way he was in bounds.
Yeah. I thought he dropped it. It was like, oh, gosh.
Unreal play. It's nice to see after the last couple of weeks where it's felt like, God, just injuries on injuries. And, man, who's going to step up and who's... It was nice to see, like, Deebo Samuel, long catch today. Brandon Aiyuk, long catch today. George Kittle have that kind of reception where you start to see, okay, little bit of a rocky start to the year, but at the same time, during today's game, you start to see where the dominant version of this team is. This isn't some team that just fell off a cliff and they're going to go win 9 games this year. That might happen if they can never get fully healthy, but you start to see, like, okay, this is a team today felt like the kind of win for me where, all right, the preseason stuff is over. They're overcoming their injuries. That's going to happen throughout the year. But that was a good group of players ready to go dominate a game today.
Do you want to hear what Purdy thinks of George Kittle's touchdown catch?
I would love
that whole play.
I would love nothing more than to hear that. Mark.
I'll play it for you. Here's Brock Purdy on the touchdown throw to George Kittle.
The play was for him to break out and then go up. It was more of a 3rd down play, but we thought we'd get the look for it down there. And so I saw him break out, and then I was getting hit, so I was like, I just need to give my guy a shot here and give him a chance. So just put it up for him and let him come down with it. So, but he made a great play, but way better than a better throw than that was. Like he made the play. So that's George.
That was a fine throw.
That's George.
That's George.
I wish I had as much confidence in anything as Brock Purdy does in anyone he's throwing the ball to.
It's ridiculous. And that's
George down there somewhere.
George got it. Let's go, boys.
3 Patriots around him. Yeah, I'll just throw a jump ball.
That's fine. He's got it. Well, and that's where and I know this isn't what we're talking about, but bear with me. That's where the whole, like, Brock Purdy is the system thing. Like, honestly, throws like that are probably not Kyle Shanahan's favorite thing. Like, he's very clearly not just, 1, 2, 3, aim, shoot, fire. Like, he's scrambling around. He's running around. He's just throwing it up to George down there. Like, that's it. It's so much more than that. And I know that all the scrambling and the off schedule plays, really jump out, but there's plays like that too, where, you know what? That's probably not exactly how it was drawn up, but that's a quarterback giving his guy a shot.
You can tell Shanahan's on the sideline just clenching that clipboard about to break it and is like, why would you? It actually worked. Okay, touchdown. This is great. Everything's fine. And maybe for the first time all year, I don't know about you guys, but it felt like they were actually having fun. That's good point. Sports supposed to be fun, but like Brock Purdy's like, hi, Mom, in the camera. It's all good vibes. There never was a thought of this game is tight. It's close. Like, you're clenching your butt together, hoping you can keep it in. Like, we got to win this game. Like, oh God, it's like, this is like, we're doing great. We're vibing. We're having fun. We're throwing the ball deep, whether it's Kittle or Juwan or Aiyuk at times or Deebo. Like, this game felt like we're playing free and loose, and sometimes too loose. Purdy's interception late wasn't great, but even then, We're having fun. They're vibing. It's a good time. Could it have been better? Sure, you could have won by 30 for all I care. But you won by 17. It's great. And you can clean things up in the film room, tape room, and practice. Cool, but you won handily. It wasn't like there was a fear of, oh my God, we're going to lose this game. It was like, it's in the bag. 30
to 13 is an impressive win in the NFL. Winning by 17 is not easy to do. And keep in mind, this is a team that took the Seahawks to overtime, that beat the Bengals in Cincinnati week 1. They got smoked by the Jets last week and maybe are coming down to earth a little bit. But anything like that happens in the NFL. The Niners, what was the spread? Like 9.5, 10 points? 10.5 points? That's a lot.
Biggest spread of the week, and you covered by nearly a touchdown.
They covered like comfortably.
Yeah. By the way, lock of the day was Niners minus 10.5. Mm-hmm. I bet it. Let's go.
Come on.
I almost got the score prediction exact.
You did. Okay, so Mark said to me today, before the game started, I said, I kind of think the Niners are going to roll these dudes. Like, I think they're locked in. I think there was the video of Fred breaking down a huddle before people had their uniforms on. Like, he got, while people are out, running around in their undies and stuff before the game. He had people together for that and like gave a speech there. And so I was like, hey, you know what? I think these guys are locked in. I think they're going to roll. And Mark went, yeah, I think 27-10.
There's a field goal off for both teams.
And for me, and where I land, you get credit for that. Where I'm from, you get plus or minus a field goal.
I'll take it. Yeah, win by 17 points. It was an Ottoman game, as you might say, if you bet the Niners. Obviously, just to win, it was important. And I think, Sterling, you're onto something. For me, clearly, obviously, and this is so straightforward and obvious, I'm not even sure I need to say it, but I will anyway. You just had to win the game by any means necessary. Like, you can't go to 1-3. You can't lose at home to the Patriots, who, as you said, Kyle, are coming back down to earth. They just got obliterated by the New York Jets. They're coming off of a mini bye, so they had the rest advantage, but I don't care. You have to win this game no matter what. Even if it was ugly, even if it took a last-second touchdown, like even if that's what it took, win the game. Bottom line, no matter what, win. But there's also something to worth saying in terms of what you're talking about, Sterling. It kind of had some last year's vibes to it.
Yeah.
The fun that they had. Brock Purdy smiling and waving at the camera, as you pointed out, Sterling. As you were talking about earlier, Kyle, all the big plays, the chunk plays down the field. You had Debo running past a cornerback, which generally seems like something that happens when the cornerback is worried about McCaffrey or Kittle underneath. Like, Debo generally doesn't just run past someone. That's not the kind of guy that he is. He get the ball in his hands and he's elusive and he can make guys miss. Yes, but he's not the route runner that just finds himself wide open deep down the field all the time. You had that. You had Kittle with a diving catch on a third down. You had Kittle the incredible touchdown. You had the good vibes, and you had some of that week 1, obviously. It's kind of hard to suss out whether the vibes week 1 are because it's week 1 or because the team is having a good time. Today felt like they were having a good time. And Nick Bosa playfully, like, celebrating when he got a sack finally. It reminded me of, I forget which year it was. It was during the Kevin Durant Warriors era, and Klay Thompson got off to a terrible start. Actually, I think it was the night that he set the record for most threes in a game in Chicago against the Bulls. And he was shooting terrible to begin that season. It was maybe 3 weeks into the year or something like that. And he finally breaks out, and it gets to a point where they cut to a commercial, and Klay, after making like his first 5 threes or whatever it was, looks at his right hand and says, dang, I missed you. Like, you're finally back. I missed you. Like, it was that kind of vibe around the Niners. That's what I felt when Nick Bosa is like kind of jokingly showing his frustration because he finally got the sack he'd been chasing for so long. So the win is great. But Sterling, I think to your point, there is something to be said for the way it felt. And it did kind of feel like it had some of those vibes from last year where it felt like no matter what, the Niners were going to come out and they were going to put 30 on your head because that's just what they do.
I do want to say, if you had Niners minus 10.5, you were sweating a little at the end. Pat's on 1st and 10 at the Niners 18.
Never a doubt. Never a doubt.
Oh, no, that's Mark Grandy, Sterling Bennett. I'm Kyle Matz. We're hanging out. 888-957-9570. 888-957-9570 is the phone number here on Overtime. That's also the Xfinity mobile text line if you want to hit us there. The 925 says, we still need to trade Aiyuk if we want to get where we want to go. You heard it here. Now I'm not there.
What?
I'm not there. No, dude, I will say, though, just putting a pin in the Aiyuk thing, because honestly, at some point, Aiyuk's going to have a 9-catch, 128-yard, 2-touchdown game. We're going to be like, oh, hey, he's back, when really the ball just found him, and he's been doing what he's been doing all year. Juwan Jennings turning into a legitimate weapon for the 49ers, though. And I know that we've all known, right? If you watched the 49ers, there was no question that Juwan Jennings could play. But then you go look at his numbers. Like, if you had asked me, hey, how many catches did he have last year? I would have said, like, I don't know, 30, 35. It was 19. But all of them feel so impactful. And then today, 3 catches, 88 yards. If that's just what Juwan Jennings is going to turn into, is this low volume, just 30, 40-yard catch guy, it just adds another element to the Niners offense. It comes from the most unlikely place because he runs like a 4.8. I'm here for it.
His catch today, Sterling, the one deep down the field.
Ridiculous.
Uncalled defensive
Crazy.
pass interference, and he caught it anyway. He is incredible down the field.
Yeah, man. And it's not anything new, right? I don't think he's doing anything different. He's getting in the ball.
The third and Juwan has become first and second in Juwan. He's been so reliable. Like, just Juwan, right? Just Juwan, just JJ. Like, he has become a player that, you know, we've grown used to being used in clutch situations and kind of sparingly, kind of that number 2 tight end role where they don't touch the ball a lot, but when they do, it's in clutch, clutch downs or whatnot. And his breakout obviously came in the Super Bowl last year, and that's carried over. He got paid this offseason, which somewhat is never brought up. Like, he got a massive raise from his like $750,000 salary he was making, and he's proving that, hey, I can be a receiver number 2 in the NFL. And I guarantee you, on a bad team, he's in receiver number 1. Put him on Carolina. He's probably the best guy they got out there.
The Patriots,
and they're a terrible team, but still, like, Juwan is awesome, and he's not just third and Juwan anymore. Like Kyle said, he's just Juwan.
Just Ben Jennings. Just out there.
Benny Jennings.
Just Benny Jennings out there. Hey, you know what's kind of wild? Speaking of 49ers who have kind of broken out that we were all waiting for to break out. We haven't even mentioned really Jordan Mason today. He went 24 carries, 123 yards, a touchdown. It's just so casual now. That's just what Jordan Mason's going to do. His 100 yards in a tutty every week.
At a certain point, the national conversation is going to become, well, Jordan Mason is just a product of that system. I mean, anybody could do it, right?
Right. That's exactly what it's going to be.
That. What is so infuriating is everyone will have that opinion. Like, people have that opinion about Brock Purdy. We know that. People have that opinion about Brandon Aiyuk. We learned that this offseason through the very painful contract negotiations. And I guarantee you people have that thought about Jordan Mason. Okay, so if 3 of the most important pieces on this team, your number 1 receiver, your quarterback, and your running back, whoever it is, if they're all products of the system, what even is the system? Those are the 3 cogs in the system. Like, what are we even doing here? They're just good players. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're even talking about.
If you watch the 49ers play football, because today's offense did not look like last year. It didn't look like last year's offense from a aesthetic standpoint. They ran this graphic on Fox today. They're last in the league in YAC right now in yards after catch, after leading the league in that in each of the last 5 years. They're last in the league because the offense is just different. They're not ripping off 50, 60-yard run plays. Jordan Mason had a 25-yard run at the end of the game. It was the longest carry of the year. It's 25 yards. Christian McCaffrey had 3 of them in the first 2 weeks last year. So, or had 3 carries longer than that in the first 2 weeks last year. It just looks different. We talked about Brock Purdy already, how different it looks. It's like drop back, pushing the ball down the field. It's not everything is an in-breaking route. They're stretching defenses vertically. It's a different version of this offense. So if you're going, yeah, it's a system thing. Well, if they're good in a bunch of different systems, at some point it's no longer the system. So I'm out on that critique, especially after watching them today. It just looked like a pretty normal NFL offense that was executed at a really high level. I think if you take the interception off of Brock Purdy's stat line, he's 15 of 27 for 288, a touchdown and a pick. You take the interception off that stat line, it's another just sterling day for, no pun intended, another sterling day for Brock Purdy. He's just, hey, you know what? Good players playing together turns a team to be pretty good. You heard it here first. You're welcome.
Shocking analysis.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't know. Go ahead. Sorry.
Does it bother you the fact that he fumbled twice today, though? Like in my head, I think
Mason?
of, let's say in 10 weeks' time, let's say Christian McCaffrey's back. If that continues, which I don't think it will, but if it does, he's not going to play, right? That is a Kyle Shanahan no-no that'll get anybody in the doghouse. Like, he had a great game. I get it. Over 120-plus yards, big touchdown. We all love Mason. Hoorah. Like, I'm all for it. But the 2 fumbles, that's not great. And I don't want to get negative, but, like, if CMC's back, he's not playing if he's going to keep doing that.
The fumbles, it's a good point, Sterling, and I was just going to bring it up as well because I saw it on the Xfinity mobile text line. Shout out to the 408 for bringing it up. Jordan Mason fumbled twice, put the ball on the deck twice. I think they were both kind of fluky kind of fumbles. Doesn't excuse them. They were still bad. One of them was Brock Purdy. He had a quick read. He could throw a quick pass out to the right, or he could hand it off to Jordan Mason. So Mason, RPO, classic RPO. Mason's unsure of if he's going to get the ball or not. So he's just kind of waiting with his arms open for Brock to deliver it to him. And if he lets go of it, then he'll clamp down on it and he'll take it. I think he was a little confused, thought Purdy was going to pull it back and throw it. He didn't. Brock let the ball go, and Mason made a mistake, didn't have it there. And then the other one was on a pitch, and he just simply didn't catch the pitch. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Those are bad. You can't have that. But it's not as if he's running up the middle and he's holding it in one arm, and there's an easy punch from a D lineman knocking it out. I'm not sure exactly which is more concerning or a worse mistake, but it feels like the ones that he made today are more maybe a singular lack of communication with Brock, focus on the pitch, and those are pretty easily correctable versus an overall overwhelming or worrying trend of this guy just when the ball gets hit, he loses it. This was just on him not catching the ball a couple of times. And that seems like something that I'm not terribly concerned is going to be something he repeats going forward.
Yeah, that's where you saw Isaac Arendo, right? Isaac Arendo fumbles a kickoff because he ran into his own guy and the ball came out.
That's a little worse.
Like, that's a ball security problem, right? Like
and then got benched immediately.
Yeah, and then Juszczyk was returning punts and Debo was returning kicks.
I don't love that. I don't know what happened to Jacob Cowing that he didn't get to return punts.
He got hurt, right?
Did he?
He got hurt. I think he hurt his shoulder.
Oh, okay. Shanahan didn't mention it after the game, at least that I saw. But Isaac Arendo fumbles once and is out of the game. I agree with you. The Mason fumbles looked more like a execution problem that can be fixed more than that guy's just not holding on to the football.
Like George Pickens does every single week.
Yeah, where he's just loose with the football. Yeah, so I'm not super concerned about Jordan Mason's fumble problem just yet. If this is something that we're talking about next week and then the week after that, okay, then yeah, let's talk about it. But I'm not super worried today because it did look just like an execution thing that you can fix, and it's not just a carelessness with the ball.
I do think the other thing about Jordan Mason, though, which is important, and obviously the McCaffrey question in all of this will make it a big deal or not a big deal. I'm honestly a little shocked that Jordan Mason hasn't maybe shown a little bit more wear and tear through 4 games. There are feeding him the ball over and over and over again. He's getting the McCaffrey touches, every single one of them. Like, Garendo's coming in and getting a couple of touches a game. Jordan Mason would be getting a couple of touches a game if McCaffrey was healthy. And I said this, you guys remember, after week 1, the win over the Jets, I would be a little concerned if, say, McCaffrey misses 8 games. McCaffrey misses 8, and all 8 of those games, Mason is getting like 20-plus touches a game. I'm a little concerned by the time you get to game 6, game 7, game 8, that he's going to be wearing down a little bit, and it might not look as pretty as it has through 4 games. Now, he's given me no reason other than those 2 fumbles today, which, again, I think are a little more fluky than anything else. He was awesome again today, averaging over 5 yards a carry, 24 rushes, 123 yards, and a touchdown. Also had a touchdown through the air, taken back because of a strange holding call against George Kittle. He's been awesome, and this isn't me saying I don't believe in Jordan Mason going forward, but if he's touching the ball 20-plus times every single game, I think we will get to a point where a guy who hasn't touched the ball this many times in a very, very long time, probably going all the way back to high school, the last time it happened, I would get a little bit concerned about how long he can keep this up. which is where the McCaffrey question comes in. I'm not so sure how much Shanahan believes in Guerendo to take much of a load off of him. Maybe you do go out and eventually bring in a veteran running back to spell him a little bit, but I'd be concerned if McCaffrey's absence is extended maybe another month plus. I don't know how Mason's going to hold up down the stretch because he's new to this. It's difficult to touch the ball 20-plus times for half a season, and we're getting, obviously, 4 games in, and we're a month in now. If this keeps going for Mason, that might be a point of worry for me personally.
He's on pace for 387 carries.
Jeez.
That's a lot, FYI.
Yeah.
That is so many carries. He's up to 91 through 4 games, which I'm with you, Mark. I think that's unsustainable. And you saw last week, Isaac Guerendo, 5 carries. Should have had a 6th, but it got called back for holding, right? And then you hear Chris Forrester this week talking about how impressed they are with Isaac Guerendo and how happy they are with him. And Kyle Shanahan saying, like, yeah, we didn't learn anything new. We've always been a big fan of his. And he's going to start earning more carries going forward and this and that. He has 1 today for no yards. And then he fumbles on the kickoff, and he's never seen again. Kickoff, offense or otherwise. Here's what Kyle Shanahan had to say about Isaac Guerendo's fumble.
I chalk it up to an NFL football player getting hit and fumbling it. I don't put it on being a rookie. You can fumble it whoever you are. It was a big fumble, especially opening up in the third quarter. I think is what gave them a chance. They answered right away. Biggest thing when someone has a turnover, you want the defense to go out and hold them to 3. I think they scored on a 4th down maybe. We had a commitment, trying to stop an inside zone run, and they had a good play call getting out there to score. But we'll come back to them. But yeah, that was a big fumble.
We'll come back to him, just not today. He was done for the day. Hey, that's a bad mistake.
To say that was an NFL player, like, he caused it himself. It wasn't like he got hit. He just dropped the football, essentially. But does Guerendo's fumble impact maybe how long they can ride Mason? Because we already saw Shanahan today say, look, you fumbled. Whether that was the reason he didn't play in the second half at all, it seemed like it was. Maybe there's something else going on. Mm-hmm. But if that happens and Shanahan is quick to pull a plug on a player like Guerendo, who is the RB2, it feels like it is a lone wolf backfield for Jordan Mason. He has to be the guy until they can get to Christian McCaffrey, and who knows if that ever gets resolved this year. Maybe it doesn't, maybe it does. I hope it does for sure. But, if Guerendo struggles on kick returns and fumbles again, you're not putting Patrick Taylor Jr. back there. Maybe you got to sign Matt Breida. Maybe Kyle Juszczyk's getting a couple carries. Maybe it's Deebo Samuel the wide back, but we've seen Deebo Samuel the wide back in the last couple of years. When he's back there, you know what's coming. So it feels like it is a Jordan Mason bridge to CMC, and that is the only option right now for San Francisco.
Yeah, it's a little bit concerning. Shanahan also said, almost word for word, the same thing about Jacob Cowing when Cowing fumbled against the Vikings after week 2. Like, it was almost word for word. Like, the fumbles happen. It's just what happens. Now, Cowing has stayed back there and has returned punts still until he got hurt. Sterling was right. I checked on it. A shoulder injury for Cowing. He was questionable to return, did not return. At that point, I don't think it's anything serious. I'm not sure Shanahan even addressed it post-game, at least not that I've heard. If it is, it's nothing major. He said the same thing about Cowing. I know a lot of Niner fans have been frustrated by Cowing's lack of involvement in the actual offense, especially last week when Deebo wasn't in and Kittle wasn't in, and you needed someone to make some plays. But he's stuck with Cowing returning punts, but Guerendo fumbles once, and now he's not even getting any more rushes. I'm not exactly sure how Shanahan should go about this. The one thing I'm so fearful of, Deebo Samuel is so valuable to this team that I don't want to waste his touches. Every single touch for Deebo is so valuable and so important. Yeah. And valuable, one, for what he does in terms of advancing the ball down the field. It's also valuable because he only has so many of them in him. Don't just give Deebo Samuel the kickoff return because you feel like maybe he's going to... is that worth it? He's going to take a big hit. Yeah. And you're going to take away a touch that he could get on offense and change the game. Guerendo fumbled once. Okay, great. Get back in there and do it again, and don't run into the back of your own blocker and fumble this time, bud. I don't know. I would like to show a little bit more belief in my young guy. You can't have that fumble, but I also don't want one play and one moment to be the reason that Deebo Samuel now is forced to return kicks and gets injured as a result. That's the nightmare that this might turn into. So you can't have that. You can't have a fumble that turns into points on the other side. But I think you got to show your young guys a little bit more faith and confidence that they can get it done and throw them back out there and don't kill their confidence after one bad play.
Kyle Shanahan showing faith in a young player would be the first time. And it's just, that's kind of what it is. I don't think that Isaac Guerendo's persona non grata for the rest of the year, but it does matter that he's a rookie because Kyle Shanahan doesn't have anything to go off of. So he says it's an NFL player. I don't chalk it up to him being a rookie or anything. Totally. But that's why he didn't come back in. If Deebo Samuel had done that on a kick return, Deebo Samuel was going back and returning another kick.
I mean, we could mention Ronnie Bell from last week. Ronnie Bell has dropped passes before.
Yeah.
And he gets on the field.
Healthy scratch today.
Yeah, healthy scratch today because Deebo was available. But
the reaction to that on the internet, Trent Williams in, Deebo Samuel in, Ronnie Bell, healthy scratch. The Ronnie Bell news was the one that really got people. All right, we're having a good time. The 49ers win 30-13. They are 2-2 on the season. 888-957-9570 if you'd like to join the program. That's also the Xfinity mobile text line. We'll have more from a dominant 49ers win next on Overtime.
just wanted it more.
Now back to overtime with Grandy, Madsen, and Bennett with sounds from the locker room and your calls at 888-957-9570. Overtime continues now.
The catch so nice we had to hear it twice.
Exactly.
Not a babe. George Kittle's touchdown catch there. Joe Davis, by the way, terrific call from Joe Davis. Greg Olsen, outstanding. The spotter for that booth today, not as good. Had a little bit of a rough go.
Yeah, we noticed this watching the game here because I like to print out the little spotting sheets of the Niners. If you're at Levi's, you go to the press box, they'll hand you one of these on like not flimsy printer paper.
Right.
But I like to print one out myself so I have all the names in front of me. Sam Okawanu, not on here. So that's where I would imagine the spotter had a hard time identifying him because Joe Davis a couple of times identified him as 51, not 91, who's Robert Beal.
49ers would kill to have Robert Beal be that productive.
That would be a story if Robert Beal played like Sam did today. But yes, not the best day for the Fox spotter. Whoever you are out there, if you're listening, apologies. The Niners kind of hurt you, though, because they did not have a guy who was playing in this game listed. So the Niners did not do you any favors, Fox.
Overall, though, I thought they called a good game. Shout out to them. Let's hear from Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers head coach. We have his press conference here for you after today's dominant 49ers win, 30-13 over the New England Patriots. Let's hear from Kyle Shanahan, then we'll talk about it.
No. I mean, I don't think it was an ACL or anything, but it was just had some swelling and stuff, so he couldn't go.
Feel that defensive start helped you guys today, especially for the pick six.
Oh, that was awesome. I mean, I thought the defense was awesome all day. Anytime you score, even better. But to start out the way they did, the first couple drives especially, scoring, Fred getting the score, the 2 turnovers they created. I didn't get a look at all the stats, but I think they were really good on third down. Defense felt like dominated all day.
It's been so good for so many years, but do you feel he's playing at a different level now?
I do a little bit. It's kind of hard to say that. I mean, he's been so good every year. So, but the way he started out this year, it's been a big time year for him so far.
You went up top in this game. Seemed like 3 or 4 times. Was that part of the original plan, or was it something that they were doing defensively that kind of led to that?
I mean, you always have that stuff in. Just they play. We caught them in quarters a couple times on both those plays, and their safeties were down tight, and that's where the ball has got to go. And Brock made 2 good throws, and both the guys came down with the play. Had a third chance that was incomplete. Corner did a good job staying on top, but I think it was versus all the same coverages.
There were some good deep balls last season and the season before, but do you think he's better at that even now?
I think it's the same. I thought we had some better looks today on a couple of them, but no, Brock's done a real good job with that.
First drive, he had 2 third down scrambles for first downs, and then he eluded, a sack and then threw to Kittle for 15 yards. Is he better at decision making when it comes to when to take off, when to stay in and throw? From his rookie year, obviously.
I think he started doing it more last year. He's done it a lot this year. It's something he did in college a lot. I think Brock has just got the confidence on when to hang in there and try to make the play work and when to break and buy time and try to make a play, getting people open later off schedule or trying to move it with his legs. And he's done a hell of a job of that these last 2 weeks. If he didn't do that in the playoffs last year, I don't think we would have got to the Super Bowl. So I think he did it then too. And love having that asset of our offense. He's done a hell of a job with that.
The Correndo fumble, is that just a rookie play, or how do you chalk that one up?
I chalk it up to an NFL football player getting hit and fumbling it. I don't put it on being a rookie. You can fumble it whoever you are. It was a big fumble, especially opening up in the third quarter. I think it's what gave them a chance. They answered right away. Biggest thing when someone has a turnover, you want the defense to go out and hold them to 3. I think they scored on a 4th down maybe. We had a commitment trying to stop an inside zone run, and they had a good play call getting out there to score. But we'll come back to them. But yeah, that was a big fumble.
The video of B.A. Friday throwing his shoes and stuff didn't look awesome. Are you surprised that he cared that much about his shorts?
No, I'm not. didn't know you guys had it on video. That stuff happens. I mean,
Does it usually happen that a player would throw a shoe because he had to change shorts?
I didn't see what he threw. Maybe he was just joking, laughing about throwing a shoe. Maybe he didn't like his shoe. I didn't interview him about his shoe toss. But I hate some of the clothes I got to wear out there also. But it is what it is.
On the interception, Brock kind of just threw it up there for maybe Brandon to make a play. Is that something that's in the system, or is that you would prefer that throw not be made?
No, I don't want him to throw into double coverage. But there was a busted route on the backside. It looked like BA was going to be alone. It was man coverage, and someone ended up in the wrong spot. So there was a guy Brock wasn't expecting to be over there because we should have distributed the field a little bit differently. But I didn't like how late it was. I didn't throw really in the rhythm of the play, and had a chance early, but it didn't have a chance late, and that was a big turnover. It was one of the reasons they had a chance to get back in it, but our defense held up strong.
I say about this a lot, but is Juwan playing with just a different level of confidence this year?
I don't think so. I think Juwan was born this confident. He's always like that. You guys know how Juwan is. He's as confident as it gets, and I think it's one of his best assets. He's a very talented player, but Juwan never feels he can be denied, and that's why he's been so important to us over the years.
Plays based on what your quarterback can do and do well. At this point, is there any plays that you can't call for Brock?
No, I don't think there's. No, I think Brock, since he's his first game playing here, there hasn't been a type of play. I mean, he's very good in the drop back game, play action game. He's good on the bootlegs and stuff. We don't call too many like zone read and things with him. I think he'd be capable of it, but we're not trying to make a living off that. But Brock has been one of the most consistent players in the league since the first game he's played.
It seemed like you guys dialed up more blitzes than you usually do. How much of that is a result of Javon being gone, and how much is just kind of the opponent?
I think all of it. When there's a lot of run blitzes in there too because of how heavy of a run team they are and stuff. But I thought Nick did a real good job today. I thought the whole defense did really good.
Off in the starting lineup, do you think he was ready for it? Was there a need there?
Mustafa? Yeah, we thought he was ready for it. I mean, when him and Gio were going, we started rotating him a little, I think the second week. So he's been doing awesome in practice. We started to mix him in there in game 2. I think Huff came back in game 3, so we didn't need to do it. But when we found out Huff couldn't play today, we knew he was next man up.
How close was Bunga to playing today, and is this something you think is going to linger?
I don't think so. I mean, it's, we thought he would play today. But we knew it would be a game-time decision. He got here early, he worked out, and he didn't feel like he could go, and I'm really glad that he didn't.
What do you make of Mason? I mean, it's rare for a running back to go for 5 yards a carry, and this guy's doing it in almost every single game he plays.
JP runs so hard when you commit to the run, and he gets a number of carries, it's just eventually he's going to get them. He just apologized to me before I walked in here because there was a couple he missed, which is the type of guy he is. There were some that he left out there, but there's also, when I feel there's nothing there, and he also always gets a lot more than I'm expecting. So he's been a stud this year. He's been a stud every time we've given him the ball, and he's really taken advantage of his opportunity.
Looks like Evan Anderson got a fair amount of snaps today. What were you seeing from him that allowed him to get bumped up today, and how do you think he did?
That was just because of injuries. It was next man up. We had 2 guys on practice squad, and they battled it out all week to see who would get the run, and he won. And he's going to be part of that 4-person rotation. And then losing Jordan Elliott in the game made it much more important because you only have 3 left, and that's why he got to play probably more than we expected him to. And it seemed like he did a good job out there. I'll definitely watch the tape, but it's always good to get some young guys some experience, and especially doing it after a win.
How do you feel the defensive line played in general? 6 sacks, they did so well against the run.
From what I saw out there, it seemed like they dominated the run and the pass game. So I was really excited with them, especially losing Hargrave last week. We really needed to step it up, and then losing Jordan in this game too just made them down a man, and I thought they played well throughout the game, first quarter to fourth.
You want to be 50-50 run, pass, you always say that, understanding. I've asked you in the past, does Purdy's success make you think, we can go through a little more? I think you were 60-40 pass most of this game until the end when you're running it. Is it a case where your quarterback allows you to think, you know what, let's just start throwing the ball a little more?
Yes, but I think that's how we've been since really he's been in or gotten in. It took a couple weeks to realize that, and But usually that is how it works out, especially a team like that, the way that they play up front. They had 6 guys on the line of scrimmage a ton, which you can run the ball versus that. But if you just think you're going to do it on every first down and second down, you're going to be a lot on third and longs and have some 3 and outs. So you got to mix it up and, get them on their heels, make them play some other stuff. That's why we had to throw some of those posts today. Just the guys they had on the line of scrimmage, how tight their safeties were. And usually when you do that, you get guys backed up. And when your defense plays like they were, then you can usually close it out by running the ball and trying to make sure to keep it a 2-3 score game. And I think all those carries was a good example of how that's not always just an offensive stat. That's a huge team stat.
Bosa had a lot of almost sacks there in the second half. He finally got one. Were you happy for him? Did you see the effort he was making?
No, I wasn't happy for him. Yeah, I was happy for him. I'm happy for everybody who gets a sack. But yeah, he's a big man. We compare him to like Ben Roethlisberger. Like if you don't get your body on him, he doesn't go down. You can't just grab that guy and pull him down. You got to hit him dead square, and he was close coming around the edge a number of times, which you can get the strip and stuff, but I haven't seen really anybody just pull him down with one arm. You got to hit him square, and that's why he's one of the more competitive guys I've seen play that position, and it usually takes 2 to take him down.
That's Kyle Shanahan after today's 30-13 win for the 49ers over the Patriots. It's so funny how different he is after a win versus after a loss. Like he's going to do his little jokes and he's like, yeah, chalk up a fumble. Yeah, he'll get his carries again. It is so funny. You can get, we were talking about the vibes earlier and how you felt like the vibe was different today, just with the 49ers in general. Like, man, they really needed something to get him out of the rut, and they go out and they dominate the way that they did. And you just hear the way Kyle Shanahan's talking in that presser. It's like, yeah, coach feels good. I feel like the team's probably feeling pretty good now too. Feels very stable now.
Although he was clearly frustrated having to answer questions about Shortsgate.
Hey, he thought he was done with that. He was annoyed by it on Friday.
Well, I was honestly okay, so for those of you who don't know what happened, Friday, video surfaces of Kyle Shanahan going up to Brandon Aiyuk on the practice field and essentially probably saying something along the lines of, hey, Brandon, you're wearing red shorts. During practice, we wear black shorts. Sorry, you got to change. Mm-hmm. And maybe it was a little bit of a longer conversation than it needed to be. Aiyuk may be a little bit frustrated, like, okay, I'm wearing red shorts. Why is this a big deal? Whatever, it's the rule. He changes his shorts. He tries to kick the red shorts, but kind of misses. Probably him just joking around, whatever. Kyle Shanahan then meets the media, and he gets asked about it and brushes it off. And then the Niners have this great win, and he's asked about it again. And he's like, well, he threw his shoe, too, apparently. And Shanahan says, well, maybe he just doesn't like his shoes. He's upset at his shoes. Mm-hmm. Like, you're right that he's feeling in a better mood and he can kind of like joke about these things. Yeah. But they clearly got under his skin a little bit because he was not expecting or wanting to answer a question about Brandon Aiyuk and what color shorts he wore on Friday's practice.
Not thrilled.
He wanted to treat the short gate conversation like Isaac Garendo. On the bench, don't talk about it anymore. Move on. I don't want to see it or hear from it ever again. Just sit down. Don't do anything. Like, the minute that question was asked, you can hear Shanahan's demeanor change from, yeah, they got to win, cool, to, okay, yeah.
I hope
maybe he didn't like his shoes. I don't know.
I hope the floor falls out of this room and it swallows all of you right now. Like, that's how his voice sounded. I want to go back to something, though. I want to re-rack one of his answers here because it goes to something we were talking about with the 49ers offense this season and specifically Brock Purdy. Here's what Kyle Shanahan said about Brock Purdy's interception in the end zone.
No, I don't want him to throw into double coverage, but there was a busted route on the backside. It looked like BA was going to be alone. It was man coverage, and someone ended up in the wrong spot. So there was a guy Brock wasn't expecting to be over there because we should have distributed the field a little bit differently, but I didn't like how late it was. I didn't throw really in the rhythm of the play and had a chance early, but it didn't have a chance late, and that was a big turnover. It was one of the reasons they had a chance to get back in it, but our defense held up strong.
It feels so different now. Did it used to feel to you guys like when Jimmy Garoppolo would throw an interception, Kyle Shanahan was like, okay, that's it, we're done throwing for today?
Yes.
Like, it always felt to me like every Jimmy Garoppolo, right, it felt like every Jimmy Garoppolo interception was like, we're done. That's it. Running the ball. Here we go. Now when Brock Purdy throws a pick like that, he's not it. I don't expect and I don't anticipate. He said, yeah, there was a busted coverage. A guy ended up not being where he was supposed to be, so Brock threw it as a little bit late. Don't love the turnover. But I don't now expect the 49ers to come out next game and throw it 12 times. And that was always the expectation after Garoppolo threw what was perceived to be a bad interception.
Yeah, Brock Purdy no doubt has more leeway, and he's earned it in Kyle Shanahan's mind. And I mean, Shanahan, I'm not sure if he said it word for word this way, but he's never been more confident with any other quarterback than he's ever had. Like, even if he hasn't said that word for word, you can tell just based on exactly what you're talking about. His quarterback, Brock Purdy, makes a mistake. Like, we're not hiding from it. We're not shying away from it. Brock Purdy made a mistake. It was a bad throw, a turnover in the end zone. Never good. You could have put the game away, and you kept what little hope the Patriots had alive and maybe gave them a little bit more extra hope in that moment. Bad play, no doubt about it. But because of everything else that Brock Purdy has done up to this point, Kyle Shanahan is not going to say, all right, like, now Jordan Mason, you're going to get 30 touches in this game because we don't trust the quarterback to make plays. That's where this Niners offense has changed from like 4 or 5 years ago when the Niners went to the Super Bowl the first time, I guess now 5 years ago, the 2019 season. The Niners will get to a point where if they start out running the ball and they run the ball 7 yards a carry like they did week 1, kind of, like they did in the NFC Championship game against the Packers when Raheem Mostert ran for 250 yards or whatever it was. Like, if that happens, the Niners will still just keep running the ball. But if they're at a point where they need to pass or they're passing and it's working and then the quarterback makes one bad mistake, they're not going to completely move away from that entirely. And that's because Brock Purdy has developed and created that much trust with Kyle Shanahan. And it's not just what you're talking about, which is the ability to play through a mistake. It's also the aggressiveness with which they call plays from the beginning of games.
Yeah.
Like, you're
100%.
not even at a point probably where the Niners have a chance to put the nail in the coffin in the second half. A touchdown in this game's over beyond any reasonable doubt. I guarantee you, with Jimmy Garoppolo or maybe rookie Brock Purdy, before you really know who this guy is, they're running the ball. They're running. Guess what? If they stop us, we kick a field goal, okay, we're just not going to commit the back-breaking turnover. So I think it's kind of multiple ways you could see the confidence in Brock Purdy grow, and it's why all this conversation last week about this is the referendum on Brock. He's got to get it done without the other stars. It was all such BS because Kyle Shanahan has told you at every single step of the way there is nothing more we need to see from this guy. Does not mean he's going to be perfect 24/7, Sterling, but it means no matter what happens, almost no matter what happens, anything could possibly happen, but no matter what happens, this is going to be the guy moving forward.
And it's not like Brock couldn't point in the exact same game to the Kittle touchdown and say, well, that guy was triple covered and that was a touchdown. So why does it matter, Kyle? Like, I can do whatever I want in this offense. We're going to score touchdowns, triple covered, double covered. But even in that soundbite of Shanahan reacting to the interception, he didn't say that, oh, that was a bad throw. It was, if it was earlier, okay, you made the right decision if it was earlier. So it's not as if he's critiquing Brock like, that was a terrible throw, don't ever do it again. He's like, hey, I like where your mind's at, but be quicker with it. I think that's the difference of where the offense is now than where it was 5 years ago, where
1,000%.
the offense 5 years ago, or even 3 years ago now, it's like it was a slow processing, quick reacting slant offense of like you're in the numbers, everything's based on timing, you're reacting or you're relying on your stars to make plays, get it out of the quarterback hands as fast as humanly possible, make sure that guy doesn't beat us. Where now it's like, hey, Brock, win this game, hold it as long as you humanly possibly need to. We believe you're going to make some plays, and Brock's a playmaker. Brock is, I don't want to say he's Josh Allen or Mahomes level, but he is right now one of the best playmaking quarterbacks in the entire NFL. That's the level he's playing at currently.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. 888-957-9570. That's the phone number, 888-957-9570. That's also the Xfinity mobile text line. You're listening to Overtime. That voice you just heard was Sterling Bennett. I'm Kyle Madsen. Mark Grandy also in the building. I think that's the big kind of shift that we've seen over the last couple of years with the 49ers offense. Is just that, where, hey, you know what? If the quarterback turns it over, it doesn't feel like, man, that might be their only shot to get a chunk play in the passing game without Yak. And you see last week, right? In fact, this is a perfect example. Last week, Purdy had the shot to Brandon Aiyuk that he didn't take late in the game. Mm-hmm. And I think this was kind of why, because at that spot they couldn't afford to turn it over. And so Brock ate it. Didn't throw that one. Whereas today, okay, they're up a bunch. You throw that interception. It's not the end of the world, but you want to give your receiver a shot. You want to let your guy go make a play. And I'd so much rather have a quarterback do that than never air it out that way because they're just trying to be safe. Like, I'll live with a turnover in a 17-point game if it means that you're going to get all the other good stuff that comes with it.
I got a question, though, because it's honestly funny that this is even the reality, because the national conversation around Brock is system QB. He's what he is because of all the weapons around him, and he's a dink and dunk, drop it off to Debo, and he'll take it a mile. Brock Purdy is consistently like one of the most aggressive quarterbacks in the NFL, and I don't just mean aggressive in terms of making bad decisions and throwing into coverage. I just mean consistently pushing the ball downfield and throwing to players who are relatively well covered. Like, doesn't mean that it's a bad throw. Like, if you put it on the money 20 yards down the field when a guy is draped on a receiver's back, you could still put it out in front of him and only your receiver could get it. That's a good decision and a good throw. But he's consistently like as aggressive as almost any quarterback in the NFL. One of the guys playing right now on Sunday Night Football, Josh Allen, is also up there, and he's sometimes relatively often to the point where maybe a little too aggressive because he's committing too many turnovers. Now, he's been awesome through 3 games. In this first half, though, Baltimore is doing everything they want against him. Brock Purdy, though, is so incredibly aggressive and has, for the most part, done a pretty good job taking care of the ball. But there are moments, and some of it is the scrambling and keeping plays alive. There were a couple of times this weekend and last week where I'm just saying, Brock, throw it away. Throw it away, Brock. There was one moment in this game where he scrambles left. I think it was in the first half. And this was where like a string of 3 consecutive scrambles for Brock. And he scrambles left. He extends the play. He tries to give a pump fake, but the defender doesn't bite. So instead of either just running out of bounds, taking like a 1 or a 2 yard loss, or just throwing the ball away, he does like a backward spin away from the line of scrimmage to give him space, and he kind of runs back towards the middle of the field a couple of steps, and then buys himself an extra second to look, and then throws, and ultimately throws it out of bounds, although it was kind of dangerously close to inbounds in the end zone, and I was worried it might get tipped or deflected or intercepted or whatever. There is a part of me, to make a long point short as best I can, there are some times where I wish Brock wasn't quite as aggressive seeking out a big play and just maybe throw it away, take a loss here, run out of bounds for a 1 yard gain. You don't need to make the home run 24/7. He's been largely good at it, but there are moments where I'm a little concerned by how aggressively he kind of seeks those big plays.
Yeah, there's a boundary. There's a little bit of a gray area that you would like to see him live in for sure. But he lived in the correct colored area today. I don't know.
I liked it.
Played well enough.
I liked
the Niners won by a bunch. How you feeling after the Niners win? 888-957-9570. 888-957-9570. We've got more on this game coming up. We'll have game balls to give out. It's coming up next on Overtime on 95.7 The Game.
Ready for game day? Catch the football game at the Red and Gold Watch Party at the Veranda on Thursday, October 10th. Meet me and Steiny, win awesome giveaways, and get all the football action. It's the place to be.
inside the 20 on a gain of 55.
Now back to overtime with Grandy, Madsen, and Bennett with sounds from the locker room and your calls at 888-957-9570. Overtime continues now.
And not a bad day for Brock Purdy. You heard that 53-yard completion to Deebo Samuel. That was where'd my score go? There we go. He had the 53-yard completion to Deebo Samuel, had a 45-yarder to Juwan Jennings, a 32-yarder to Juwan Jennings, a 38-yarder to Brandon Aiyuk. The high-flying 49ers come away with a 30-13 win over the New England Patriots. I got to say, though, nothing on offense really surprised me today because their offense hasn't been the problem so far for me.
Can I just put something out there? The big plays were good, and it was fun, and it was good to see Brock Purdy air it out and Deebo get open down the field. And I know Aiyuk was kind of MIA for the majority of the game. It was good to see him get wide open. That felt like last year. We were talking about last year's vibes. First drive, Aiyuk wide open in the middle of the field. Like no one within 10 yards of him gets 38 yards or whatever it was. That felt good. Seeing those big plays was good. The offense, specifically in the second half, it was kind of stop and go and not in rhythm. Yeah. And, I mean, they put up 30 points. It almost feels like sacrilegious to say anything bad when you put up 30 points on not a terrible defense. But it really wasn't that consistently smooth, almost the majority of the game. I mean, there was red zone struggles again. Again, it feels bad saying it, 30 points. Now, to be fair, 7 of those were scored by Fred Warner in the defense. But 30 points, you'll take that every single game that you play. But there's still a lot of room for the offense to improve, even without McCaffrey, which is kind of scary. 30 points, and it was a decent day for the offense, I would say. It wasn't great. Like, they could do better.
Yeah.
With the offense put up 23 points in this game, following their drive, their 4-play 70-yard drive to make it 27-10, it was a punt, another punt, a field goal, Purdy's interception, then the field goal. There was a stretch in this game where the offense was just kind of floating. It was kind of like stagnant of like, okay, you can put this one extremely out of reach, but whether it's an interception, like you almost want to see the offense have this demeanor of, we're going to stomp on your throat. We see you, we see red, we see blood, there's blood in the water, but they're kind of just like sharks. They're not going for the kill. They're just swirling around you like, hey, how's it going? You having a great time? We're all having fun around here. Wow, it's vibes are great. No, I want you to pounce on the opposition, pull them underwater, drown them, and end them, put them out there to misery, where San Francisco is just kind of toying with their food. And it happened against the Rams last week, and there was a certain point in this game where the offense was doing similar things like they were last week, not putting the game out of reach. And while this one didn't feel anywhere close to that game against the Rams, you do want to see Kyle Shanahan and the offense come together and say, look, let's end this once and for all and put up 34 points, put up 30 points as an offense singularly, rather than having to rely on a Fred Warner pick 6 to give us the 30.
Sure. And I definitely get what you're saying, and I feel what both of you guys are saying. It didn't feel like they ever really slammed the door. Yeah. Like they got in front and then coasted in is kind of how it felt.
You're playing against a much better team, and the other team was probably making it a game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, which is a little bit
quarterback,
which is a little bit alarming because that's ostensibly what happened against the Rams.
Yep.
Like they just kind of hit a wall, and the Rams eventually chipped away enough that they got back into that game. But I will say this to the 49ers' credit, I think they were trying to do that, Sterling. Because they're up, what's the Joey Sly hits the 54-yard field goal to make it, what was it at that point, 27-13?
Correct.
Yeah.
And the Niners come back, 45-yarder to Juwan Jennings. Deebo Samuel gets a run play that goes for 15 yards. He gets called back for the illegal shift. Brock Purdy hits George Kittle for 7 yards and then takes a shot at the end zone that gets picked.
Yeah.
So it was like, I definitely agree that you would like to see them on 2 possessions inside the opponent's 10 to start the game. You need touchdowns or at least 1 touchdown. You can't get there and be up 6-0. We saw the Eagles do that against the 49ers at home last year, and the Niners ended up bow racing them. That game goes differently if the Eagles get into the end zone even once, right? So you'd like to see them do that earlier for sure. But I do think, to their credit, up 2 touchdowns early fourth quarter, I think they went for the jugular. It wasn't like they were just trying to bleed clock and hand the game over to the defense. They went for it, and Brock just threw a pick.
Which I'm encouraged by, because there are often times where maybe one of my major areas of disagreement with Kyle Shanahan is lacking the pedal to the metal, put your foot down, and just go for it. End this game in the third quarter, Kyle.
1,000%.
End it right now. Like, end any chance, any hope that the opponent has of staying in this football game. So I credit them for, still airing the ball out. It's like what we were talking about last segment. If Garoppolo was the team's quarterback, they're probably way more conservative in that moment, running the ball, killing clock, avoiding turnovers, and just increasing your odds of winning, or at the very least not decreasing it. But you have a quarterback that you have confidence in, you're willing to take those shots, and maybe your win percentage jumps from 80 to 95% as a result, instead of just hanging around 80 for the rest of that drive. But again, then they didn't execute it. Brock Purdy made a bad throw. You turn the ball over and you give the other team some hope. But I think it's more than just like the drive where they're up by 2 scores in the fourth quarter. And are they passing? Are they running? Are they airing it out? It's also in the first half, and it's red zone inefficiency, which has kind of been a story now for 4 straight games. Like it hasn't been great. They were the best team in the NFL in the red zone last year. And maybe it's just as simple as a big part of that is Christian McCaffrey, and maybe you're kind of back to the NFL reality in terms of offensive efficiency in the red zone, because you're without your game-breaking running back, and maybe it's just that simple. But there are areas on offense to where you can be not necessarily concerned, but be left wanting more, because we can all agree last week, offense, not the problem. This week, offense, not the problem. I mean, you won. There wasn't a major problem in this game. But at the same time, how many times have we said this year, wow, if they just get 1 or 2 different plays back, they execute that better, this goes for a 7-yard gain instead of an incomplete pass, they're starting at 42 points instead of 32 or 30. Like, there are fine lines between a good offensive day and a really, really, really good offensive day. And to this point, they haven't really had that really, really, really good offensive day yet. But they've been largely good for 3 of the 4 games they've played.
Yeah, 2 for 4 in the red zone today, 50%. So they're still at 50% on the season. That's middle of the pack in the NFL. But all the other numbers offensively, 7 of 13 on third down. Good number. 7.2 yards per play. We went through these earlier. Good number. 30 points, 23 offensive points. That's okay. Like everything lines up that they like, yes, awesome day offensively. They got to find out how to get the ball in the end zone. And I understand Christian McCaffrey's out, but we're in week 4 of this. Like, at some point you got to adapt, right? Like, at some point you got to do something to get the ball into the end zone, particularly on those early possessions.
Well, how many times have we seen that, though? Week 1 against the Jets, they get the forced fumble. They don't score off of it. And it's like, okay, it's one time, whatever. But then against the Vikings, they go for it on 4th down. They get stuffed. You give the other team momentum. And while the Patriots are not the Jets or the Vikings or the Rams, they're a much worse competition.
Yeah.
When you play better teams, like against the Cardinals next week or against the Seattle Seahawks on Thursday Night Football, which they're playing pretty good right now, or you play the Chiefs, who are banged up, sure, but it's still Mahomes, still Kelsey, still Spagnuolo. You're not going to win big-time games when you don't capitalize, 1, off of turnovers and takeaways, but 2, when you still have all your stars -1, but you still have Aiyuk getting $30 million, which is what it is. Debo, one of the highest-paid receivers in football. George Kittle, the highest-paid tight end, or at least one of them, the highest-paid left tackle. Like, there's no excuse to not get the ball in the end zone over and over again. And sure, 23 points, you won the game, you won by 17. We're nitpicking to a point, but it's to a point of that if things don't change, there's going to be nail-biters late in the season. This team doesn't win. Yep. It's going to cost them playoff seeding, or if things continue to go the way they are, they're 500, not great, they're okay, maybe even a playoff opportunity, which is not where this team wants to be or any fan wants to hear they'll be when it's all said and done.
I can already hear it like, oh, they scored 30 points. How could you possibly be upset at the offense? And it's not upset. It's knowing that they left a few points out there. And George Kittle was asked about this very thing post-game. He was asked if they played with a little bit of extra focus today, and he mentioned, maybe some of the red zone inefficiency. Here's what George Kittle had to say postgame.
Yes and no. I thought we started off well. I want to score touchdowns, so like getting 2 field goals to start the game. We're leaving points on the board. Then obviously Fred had an amazing play to get a touchdown, and I think we were rolling there for a little bit. But second half, I think we have a lot of things that we need to clean up. We had like 3 drives that weren't great. We were on the field for a while, but they weren't fantastic, and those are things that we have to execute and stay on the field and not fumble it, whatever it was. I haven't watched the tape, so I don't really see it, but I just felt like we were playing from behind a little bit there in the third and fourth quarter, so we need to clean that up, especially when we're playing like very dominant teams that have like really good offenses. Not saying the Patriots don't, but our defense was playing very good against them today.
You can say that, Kittle.
It's okay.
You can say the Patriots don't have a very good offense, but he's exactly right, and it's exactly what you guys are talking about. You don't need to play an A-plus game on offense to beat this Patriots team, but you play the Bills. You play the Chiefs, you play the Lions.
Yeah.
You're going to need to have at least an A game on offense, and I'm not so sure the Niners have had an A game on offense yet through 4 games.
Yeah, today was about as close as you can get, but this is why ball security is so important, because they open the second half, they're supposed to get the ball and they fumble on the kickoff. So not only now your offense doesn't get a crack at going down to score, but now the Patriots recover and they have great field position. So they march down and score. The Niners respond with a touchdown. That was that 4-play, 70-yard drive.
Bang, right down the field.
Right back in it. And then they go punt. Okay, not awesome. But then they go for the jugular and they throw an interception. And those are the 2 things that stick out to me. So you're losing a possession with the fumble, and then you're giving away another possession and possible points with the interception. If you remove that, let's say they punt without the fumble. Let's say they have a normal drive and they punt. The Patriots may not find the end zone. I had no reason, I don't know about you guys, I have no reason to believe the Patriots are going to drive the length of the field and score a touchdown against the 49ers today. Right?
Didn't seem like it, yeah.
Outside the last drive where the Niners were just trying to get to the end of the game. And then the interception, if that's a touchdown drive instead, like maybe this is 37-6, and we're talking about like, holy smokes, they dominated in every facet. But Mark, that goes to what you were saying earlier. It's small things. It's these little things they have to clean up. I thought, for the most part today, this was as good as the 49ers have looked all year. Is that fair?
Yeah. It's hard to complain when you win 30-13.
Yeah.
It really is hard to complain. You won, you're 2-2, you're 500, you're 2-0 at home, you're back in the NFC West hunt, only a couple games back now. The Rams lost, the Cardinals lost. You're in a good place to gain some ground in a division that you kind of dug yourself a hole in. And the offense seems to be coming alive a little bit more. Definitely a get-right game for the defense as well. So it's like, yeah, some things happen, but the offense as a whole is kind of rounding into form without their best offensive weapon, which is a really good place to be after a really bad loss last week.
Sterling Bennett's here. Mark Grandy's here. I'm Kyle Madsen. 888-957-9570. Still got a few minutes left to take your calls. 888-957-9570. How are we feeling after the 49ers 30-13 drubbing of the New England Patriots? I want to put a pin in the game real quick because, Sterling, you were just talking about the Cardinals lost and the Rams lost.
Yeah. Rams lost.
Tomorrow night, the Seahawks play the Lions.
In Detroit.
Detroit. The Lions, presumably a team that is in the hunt for the number 1 seed, although the Vikings need to start losing here at some point. Holy smokes, they look so good. Who are you guys pulling for tomorrow? Are you pulling for the NFC rival or the NFC West rival?
I am pulling for the Lions to defend Ford Field and knock off the Seahawks. It's early. Even if the Niners are 2 games back of the Seahawks through 4 weeks, I'm not thinking that the division is wrapped up or anything like that. Niners have 2 games against the Seahawks, including Thursday night coming up in a couple of weeks. But you don't want to ever get to a point where you feel like you got to be perfect to win the division the rest of the way. The Niners, for the last handful of years, the division has been like almost a given. Mm-hmm. Like it's been that way for the 49ers, especially at least last year. Like that is the very first thing they want to check off, and they have goals that dwarf winning a division. They want to do so much more than that. So for me, it's getting the division under control. You figure out your seeding later on. Root for the Lions tomorrow. Give the Seahawks the first loss. You'll only be a game out of the NFC West, and you'll go from there. Maybe a week later when you play them on Thursday night, you'll have a win, and you'll be tied with the Seahawks in the division. So I'm rooting for the Lions tomorrow in Detroit.
What about you, Sterling?
I'm torn because in my head, I'm looking so far into the future of like number 1 seed. Lions are a great team, but then I'm like, this isn't who we thought or how the year was going to go. You're 2-2. You're not 4-0. You're not 3-1. You've had to kind of fight and claw for every win you've had so far. And even in your losses, you're kind of panting out of breath, like, can we hold this thing together until the end? And they haven't. And so the easiest way to look at this to me is the fastest, most straightforward way to the playoffs is winning the NFC West. Win your division and you're in. Guaranteed, you're a number 1 through 4 seed. You can host a playoff game if you're lucky, and you got yourself a chance. While the number 1 seed is still a possibility for sure, you almost have to look at it as game by game, week by week. And that's not a place you want to be at, but this is where we're at. It's 2-2. You're 4 weeks into the 2024 NFL season, and the straightforward focus should simply be beat the Cardinals next week, hope Seattle loses tomorrow, then you beat Seattle in 2 weeks' time. You're tied for the division. At that point, maybe you're in first place because you have a tiebreaker. Who knows? And then you can say, wow, we're already going to be a guaranteed 1-4 seed if we can hold this thing together. So my mind wants to say, number 1 seed, beat the Lions. But my heart's like, just Seattle, I hate you. Just lose tomorrow, and I'll feel a lot better about myself.
Yeah, that's the boat I'm in, man. You gotta get to the division first, and then you can start worrying about. I'll worry about the 1 seed in like week 12.
Yeah,
that's when I'll start looking ahead to that and worrying about playoff positioning. Right now,
yeah. Last year, the 1 seed felt, even though you were good, you had the 3-game losing streak, weeks 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah.
It felt like the 1 seed was almost kind of out of your grasp until the Eagles forgot how to play football. Like things can happen at the end of the season.
They still forgot.
they still don't really. They're 2-2 right there with the 49ers. They got boat raced early in that game against. Baker Mayfield's looking pretty good, by the way. We're talking about Baker and Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Some weird quarterbacking happening in the NFL right now, but yeah.
It's the battle of mid.
The Eagles are kind of iffy right now, too. Things can happen down the stretch of the season. That'll kind of change the way the whole conference is laid out, but I'm with Sterling and you guys, yeah. Take care of the division. Get that wrapped up as soon as you possibly can. Then you'll figure everything else out after that.
All right, let's finish up the 49ers 30-13 victory over the New England Patriots. Let's give out some game balls for today's performance from the 49ers. Let's start on the offensive side. Sterling, I'll start with you today. Who gets your offensive game ball for the 49ers?
I'm going to give it to George Kittle. 4 catches off the hamstring injury, his first game back. You're kind of asking who's going to step up in a big way. Debo's back. Aiyuk's in the fray. Juwan coming off a big game against the Rams. But George Kittle leads the team. 4 catches, 45 yards, 1 essentially playing 3 flies up, back of the end zone of the corner, just go up and get it and assert your dominance over the almost entire Patriots defense on one single play. I don't think when you point to the offense to give you energy or step up, you have Debo, sure, he's the wide back, but George Kittle just brings the extra oomph. He's out there singing Skater Boy by Avril Lavigne. He's having fun. He's doing celebrations. He's doing his thing, and you're like, that's what we need, a George Kittle touchdown to get the offense going again. So game ball goes to George Kittle in this one.
Hell yeah. Mark?
I like that pick, Sterling. I'll go Jordan Mason. 24 carries, 123 yards, got in the end zone. If it wasn't for maybe George Kittle's only mistake of the day, he would have also had a receiving touchdown. Jordan Mason would have. But averages over 5 yards a carry. He's been awesome through 4 weeks. And this was the first home game where he had a great performance, where he didn't immediately get a doghouse session from Kyle Shanahan because he said something wrong on the field postgame. You remember week 1 where he had the great day against the Jets? And then he said that he found out he was going to start Friday when Kyle Shanahan was pretending that he didn't know until the day of the game. That did not happen today. Good job, Jordan Mason. You learned from your mistake there. It was a sterling day on the field and off the field. So Jordan Mason gets my game ball for the offense.
Gets the game ball for not flubbing his post game presser.
Way to go, Jordan.
Nice job, Jordan. I'm going to go, man, I got to go Juwan Jennings again. I almost went with Brock Purdy because he was really good again, but man, Juwan Jennings led the team in targets for the second consecutive week. He goes 3 catches, tied for the second most receptions on the team, led the team in receiving with 88 yards. This is with George Kittle, with Deebo Samuel getting a full snap count, with Brandon Aiyuk back. I think Juwan Jennings is developing into a real weapon here for the 49ers. Beyond just third down. And beyond just the odd game where he has 3 catches and 50 yards. Juwan Jennings is a player, 2 of those for 30-plus yards. Shout out to Juwan Jennings, man. If you go look at the Niners' longest pass plays this year, he's got like 6 of the 10. And he's been a really good player for them and a really good outing today, backing up his 11-catch, 175-yard, 3-touchdown performance last week. All right, let's jump over to the other side of the ball now. Mark, we'll start with you. Who gets your defensive game ball?
Big question for me coming into this one was, how do you make up for Javon Hargrave? We talked about schematic changes and blitzing a little bit more as they did. You going by pure numbers, there's a couple of guys who stepped up. One of them was Kevin Givens. He gets my game ball on this one. He had only 3 sacks, but 2.5 sacks. 3 tackles, 2.5 were sacks. Hit quarterbacks 3 times. Also had a tackle for loss mixed in there as well to go with those 2.5 sacks. He was in the backfield often in this game. Don't know if that's going to be a performance he can replicate going forward. If it is, that's great news because the Niners just need bodies at that spot. And he was good today. The Niners defense today, best game for the defensive line all season. And that's kind of surprising considering it was without one of their high-paid defensive tackles. So Kevin Givens was a big reason for that. He gets my defensive game ball.
Sterling?
You mentioned not having Javon Hargrave, Mark. Well, let's go to the guy that you need to step up, take over games. We talked about him last week. Where was Nick Bosa? In this game, it was, oh my goodness, there's Nick Bosa all the time. He was phenomenal in this one. The last 2 drives for the Patriots, in my notes, I say, Bosa pressure, Bosa almost pressure, Bosa strip sack. He put this game away for San Francisco. He was phenomenal. I think when you don't have Javon Hargrave, you're asking guys that maybe aren't supposed to get, 35 or 40 snaps, whatever it may be for you on defense. Bosa was like, no, I'm going to be out there the majority of the time, and I'm going to get my job done, take care of myself, and put this game away for San Francisco in a very clutch moment for a team that needed this win desperately. He had 5 tackles, had the strip sack, a tackle for loss, a quarterback hit. He was everything and more for a defensive line needing their star to step up in this one.
Yeah, how many times today did you go, man, need Bosa to make a play? And it's like, oh, there he is. Not quite. Okay, got him off. Okay, somebody else got the sack. All right, he'll take that. But yeah, no, he slammed the door for sure. I love that pick. Great game for Nick Bosa. Shout out to Evan Anderson, man.
Yeah, how about
He's going to get a little game ball. Fred Warner could get it, but he's gotten so many. His closet's a little full. Evan Anderson makes his NFL debut on an elevation from the practice squad. Just got push all day. Like he was around the football. And then he came up with a strip sack where Jacoby Brissett stepped up in the pocket and Anderson did the right thing. He hadn't won his rep, but just swipe down, just attack the ball. It's all about the ball. And, he got the ball out in that spot and he gets credit for a sack. He'll go back to the practice squad, but man, I'm it's a good run.
Great game. See you later.
They need their stars to step up, but if they can get guys like Sam Okuwanu and Evan Anderson and other peripheral players, Kevin Givens stepping up and making plays, that's going to help immensely as well as the 49ers try and figure it out on the defensive side.
I know we got to break or go and end the show, but this feels like the first time all year where we have given out 3 game balls on defense and feel like we're leaving people out, which is a great sign.
That's a great point. There was meat on the bone there for sure. And that's it's not like, I guess this guy.
By process of elimination, let me close my eyes and pick one randomly. Yeah. Not that.
For Mark Grandy, for Sterling Bennett, I'm Kyle Madsen. Thanks everybody so much for hanging out with us today on Overtime. We'll be back next week, or Sterling and I will be back next week after the 49ers take on the Arizona Cardinals. So make sure to stay locked in to 95.7 The Game all week. It starts tomorrow with the pregame show with Joe Spadoni. And can't wait to hear what he has to say. Can't wait to hear what Bonte and Shasky have to say, getting you started with the pregame show and the morning roast right here on 95.7 The Game. For Sterling, for Mark, I'm Kyle. We'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.
So what are you reading?
I'm checking out the ratings on the new TVs, and it looks like Samsung, LG, and Sony got the best scores.
Just like last year. What about those new high dynamic